You found my name in the rain on the porch. I kept it small like a pin in a glove. Your shadow leaned on the apple crate step, and the clock in the hall would not answer us. Stay a little while, stay a little near. Your breath on my cheek like a borrowed fear. Dance me slow, paper moon lace. Hold my hand in a stranger place. Hold my hand sweet and still we could disappear. Dance me slow and leave me here. Your collar was white, but your eyes were bold, like a key in a jar with a secret hold. I heard the boards count softly our feet, and the room grew thin as a candle leaf. Stay a little while, stay a little near. Your breath on my cheek like a borrowed fear. Dance me slow, paper moon lace. Hold my hand in a stranger place. Hold my hand sweet and still we could disappear. Dance me slow and leave me here.
Hey guys, what's going on? I hope everybody's having a great day. I hope you guys had a great weekend. I'm doing good. It's hotter than the 7th layer of hell. Like, I don't know, maybe back in June it was at the 9th layer, but now it's definitely at the 7th layer, maybe even the 5th or the 6th or the 4th. Who knows? It's hotter than 9 kinds of hell. It's just ridiculous. That being said, I had to put in a work order for the AC. So if they come, obviously, it'll pull me away for just a minute, but I'll get right back to it. So what I wanted to do today is I wanted to talk about these. Well, one of them is an interview, and then one of them is what Seth's own panel. So it's hardly an interview, but he did speak about his thoughts, his feelings regarding the lawsuit, and just a bunch of other stuff that I wanted to go over. Not like he spoke about a bunch of stuff that I wanted to talk about. But I would like to do this in this way. And I hope you guys will understand. I'm going to give you like jury instructions, right? I don't want anybody in the chat accusing any of the parents of anything having to do with Sebastian's disappearance, because I just personally feel like we don't have enough information about that. And while I will say that you are all certainly entitled to your opinions, as am I, some of that stuff that I just don't want that in my chat. Please. Anything else, like if what you're seeing on the screen, what what he's saying, what other people are saying, feel free. Also, I don't want, he has some creators on his panel that I know people have strong feelings about. Let's try to just discuss what it is they're actually saying and not attack them, because that's not cool. So basically, I'll just say this. Whatever Seth says as the jury in this situation, you can believe all of an answer, part of an answer. You can give it as much weight, as little weight as you want to. I just don't want to accuse any of the parents of anything surrounding the disappearance of Sebastian. Okay? I don't think it serves any good purpose. No good will come from it. And I would much rather talk about what we're watching on the screen. Okay? Cool with everybody? I hope so. I know people have very, very strong feelings, and there is a part of that lawsuit, as I mentioned yesterday on my community tab that is stuck in my crawl, and that is the Title 5 qualification, or Title 4, excuse me, Title 4-3 candidacy, because now I understand when it was issued, which was back in September of 2022, when the when Sebastian spoke to somebody at school about the incident in California. But then in May, it was determined he no longer qualified. And so that is a little stuck in my crawl, because it is something that is mentioned in Seth's federal lawsuit against the Department of Children's Services of more than once. It's really the backbone, because the allegation is that DCS was aware of Sebastian's health issues, the fact that he has a chromosome deletion, the fact that he had been diagnosed as being on the autism spectrum, the fact that he was a victim of SA, he was struggling with that, and that he had some, according to the lawsuit anyway, the filing, that he has, some concerns surrounding his stepfather. And so, and the argument is that DCS knew this. They were concerned about it as well, and they did nothing. And as a result, now Sebastian is missing. And so the other thing I want to talk about is there is no way to have a conversation about what Seth is about to say and what he feels. Okay. These are his answers. Like I said earlier, we can like it. We can not like it. We can agree. We can disagree. We can like parts of it, not like other parts, agree with parts, disagree with parts. It is what it is. What I don't want, like I said, is accusations. However, what I will say is that we can discuss the veracity of the claims and his credibility, because this is a lawsuit. It is a civil federal lawsuit. And the fact of the matter is, or if you're former Prince Andrew, the fat of the fatter is that his credibility will be if it makes it past the dismissal, his credibility will be called into question. That's how civil lawsuits work. So that's fine. I think you guys all know, like, you guys are all familiar with how I like things and how I want everybody to be able to express their opinions and all that. So I don't think I need to like belabor the point. But this whole situation is heartbreaking, because I think what's really clear from the filing is that it appears that Sebastian was really reaching out for help, really struggling. And it appears that he was getting some of the help that he needed, like with medication and therapy appointments and all of that. But then at the same time, the parents, and by that I mean Katie and Chris and Seth, all seemed they were at odds with each other. And I think that it makes it very chaotic for a kid, no matter what their age. So there you have it. I do want to say I am so glad to hear from Chicken Lady. So let me put this up. Let me scroll up, because she said it way, way up here. And I want to make sure okay. So here is an update on Esther. Hey, everyone. We brought Esther home last night to finish recovery. She's happy to be home and doing great. That is wonderful, wonderful news. Little Esther. having to be moved to a horse stall because she was causing issues and acting a fool, which, listen, we over here at the ward, and by we I mean me and y'all in the chat, not the royal we, have really taken Esther in and adopted her, and acting a fool and not one and being a rebel, and completely on brand for the ward. So she could be our little mascot. All right. We're going to start with the what happened in the order in which it happened. Okay. So we're going to start with the Coffindaffer interview. The link to her full interview is in the description. I'm going to skip right to the part where he comes on. Hang on. Okay. I'm going to tell you right now. There's going to be some audio issues. I don't know. I can't fix them from here because they ain't mine. You know what I'm saying? So it is what it is. We're just going to have to get through it. I think the problem is that when you're on a panel with somebody, you got to use earbuds. It just is what it is. Otherwise, you get that weird echo, blah, 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 blah. Okay. I'm going to speed them up a little bit. I think 1.25 is not going to hurt anything. You still be able to understand. I got the closed captions on, and let's do it. All right, here we go. Oh, hey, Jen, guess what? You need to be on the actual. Lord Jesus.
Hello, sir. How are you?
Good morning, Mrs. Coffindaffer. How are you doing today?
I'm hanging in there. I'm going to be honest with you. There's never a show that we have regarding your son that I think doesn't hit a very emotional chord with all of us. I know it's something you live with every second, every minute of every day. I also thought I would just really quick, and when he first passed, I said something on the show, did a prayer for him. But I know for you and I both, Tony was a very hard loss. He was somebody who advocated nonstop for Sebastian and was like a brother to you. So I just wanted to acknowledge that he is no longer here and with us. But
I just like to acknowledge that whether Tony's here or not, Tony has influenced me. He's also influenced the case, and it's going to be a very shame in my life and in Sebastian's life when we find him that he doesn't get to meet Tony. Tony was a really great man.
Beautifully said. I'm going to put some pictures up of your son. This is a collage. I really like this collage because it shows many faces and many time frames for Sebastian. Can you talk to us about what exactly, where you're at with these suits, how you chose your lawyer? I think all of us are so excited that you're pressing forward with this.
Well, it's all about Sebastian. Sebastian's missing. People did not do their job. People need to be held accountable for not doing their job. This young man that you have up on the screen, that is my son, deserves the best from everybody. And that includes government workers, city workers. We all deserve the best from the people that are hired by the government to take care of simple things like law enforcement is one of them. Being in law enforcement is not a simple thing, but doing your job. Is that on your end or mine?
I'm not sure. I hear a slight mic squelch, but I don't think it's anything too bad. I think it might be your mic.
I'll say this. The truth of the matter is it's both of y'all. You need earbuds. That's it. That's all. Let's go.
My mic's all the way over there.
Okay. I think it'll be fine. I can barely hear that. But go ahead with what you were saying, the importance of law enforcement and city workers doing their job and doing it well.
Yes, when you get hired, you fill out an application for a particular job. You're supposed to do your job, not show up just to collect a paycheck. And I believe that things that were supposed to have been done, procedures, policies, was not followed. And the gentleman that is representing me in federal court agrees.
Tell me how we're going to break this down step by step. tell me how you first came across your attorney. And it's just so wonderful. I am so glad you have somebody to represent Sebastian in this case on both of these fronts. Let me first ask you how you came to meet him.
He gave me a call.
Gave you a call and basically said, listen, we've got to do something about this.
No, he gave me a call and set up a meeting, and I went and spoke with him, and we had about a 2-hour conversation to try to get to know each other.
Great.
And then he stated that he'd like to see some of the stuff that I have, so I signed some paperwork with him. He reviewed the information that I had, and he said he'd like to take the case.
Excellent. Well, when we look at...
All right. So now we're learning how he came to be his attorney. He, you just heard he called him and they agreed that this is something that needs to be done. They signed an engagement letter, and Seth signed an engagement letter, and there you have it. I mean, I think that it's interesting because a lot of people have, made, let me put it this way. There are people that are really questioning the motive here, particularly surrounding the dollar amount and damages that has been requested. And this seems like it wasn't even really Seth's idea, that this attorney reached out to him and they went from there. Neat says, so is his lawyer altruistic or an ambulance chaser? I really don't know. I don't either. I think it remains to be seen. I think that, while I have certainly seen filings written by attorneys that are better, I've also seen filings by attorneys that are worse. This was not the worst. This was not the best. It was a good filing. However, there is language in it that is contradictory. And it's not, to be fair, I've watched half of this because this happened on Saturday. And when I found out that this interview took place, it was right before the third place in the FIFA World Cup game was about to start between France and England. And so I watched what I could until the game started. And then I watched the World Cup, which, if you did not watch the game against France and England, holy guacamole, that was a fantastic game. It was so good. That's all I have to say about that. But yeah, it sounds like, yes, the attorney sought him out. Body moving. Good morning, babe. Good to see you. Cat's Eye says, I heard the term ambulance chaser. Okay, let's talk about that just for a second. Yes, that is a term that is used, and it's usually used again to talk about personal injury attorneys. However, and this is not a reflection. This is kind of scary that I have to use this example, but this is the example I know off the top of my head. Okay. James Owens Esquire. Okay. Who ended up representing Sarah Boone in her criminal trial. Okay. Now, he did contact Sarah as well. And do I think that James Owens Esquire is an ambulance chaser? No. This is what I think happened with James Owens Esquire. I think that he knew that there's no way that she could represent herself in her criminal trial. I mean, she was first of all, a pro se defendant is always at a disadvantage when the other side, in this case, the prosecutor, Mr. J, who's an excellent attorney, but an attorney, period, right? So he knew she was going to be at a distinct disadvantage just because of that. But also, she was being held without bail in the county jail, awaiting trial. That also puts her at a distinct disadvantage. We watched all of those hearings where they were having to work out the logistics of her discovery so that she could go over it, and how it was difficult for her when motions were filed because she wasn't, had to go through the jail system and all the things, right? So I think it's very, very possible that what happened in this situation is that this attorney has been following this case and following this situation and thought, you know what, maybe there's something that I can do to help. Let me reach out. Let me see what he's got. Let's see what can be done, if anything. And that's where it went. Chicken Lady said, isn't this attorney well known? Yes. Yes. But that doesn't, I'm just saying from my perspective, until I see something different at this point, I don't think I would use the term ambulance chaser. I'm gonna just give him the benefit of the doubt and say that I think he thought he could help. And then whenever they met and Seth, showed him what he had and what he, and they spoke and whatnot, then they decided to move forward. All right, let's keep going.
These cases, and I want to break them down into the two separate cases. I want to start with what I believe was the genesis of how Sebastian was initially failed. And that was by the CPS, Child Protective Service personnel, the government personnel that are hired and that are supposed to understand when there are issues in a household and put above all else protecting children like Sebastian. Can you break down, and if not, I'm happy to, but can you break down the specificity of what they missed and what their failures were?
No, I can't.
You can't because of agreements you have to keep quiet?
I can't because anything to do with a lawsuit concerning what my attorney is doing or anything that's considering to the CPS, I'm still bound by certain things and I can't speak about. So unless it was addressed in the filing itself, I can't speak about those.
So basically, Coffindaffer, Seth cannot speak about anything that's not in, obviously, the lawsuit. But if you're going to ask him a question, it cannot be an open-ended question like that. It's got to be specific and it's got to be related to the actual filing. So did you come with specifics or no? That's basically what he's saying. Yeah.
Fair enough. So as far as the filing, can you break down the filing specifically as it relates to Child Protection Service piece of it? Because I know there's two suits. Let's first talk about this one.
You mean against DCS?
Yes. Sorry, and I apologize. Children's Protective Services are the general overlay, what many offices are called, but you're right, in Tennessee, and I apologize, it's actually the Department of Children's Services. So DCS is the acronym, and that's what we'll be working with for this show.
Correct. Department of Children's Services. What would you like to know that doesn't encroach on on the reports themselves? I'm not trying to, leave my house and go to jail today, Ms. Coffindaffer.
No, we do not want that. We want everything kosher. Look, what I understand is that specifically mentioned in the paperwork is a strike by Chris Proudfoot. Chris Proudfoot is the father, stepfather, I should say, the husband of Katie Proudfoot, the former wife of Seth Rogers, so the biological mother of Sebastian. And they were supposed to be caring for Sebastian for many years. Now, at the beginning of his life, are you allowed to talk about that with us? How you raised him, how Katie was working? And you talk to us about that.
I was mainly a stay-at-home father for the first 7 years. Well, I would say not for the first 7 years, but for the first, from the age of like 2.5 till 7, I was taking care of him. I mean, I had full-time job, was going to school full-time when Sebastian was born. Certain things, people, I'm not here to point fingers or, Sebastian was my son, there's nothing like waking up and knowing that today we're going to work on swimming because we're going to go to the pool, knowing that my son could swim before he could walk. we spent more time at the pool than, you know, he spent in the high chair. Sebastian delivered, God delivered me Sebastian to change my life. You know, I was still a good person, but I was going down the wrong path in life. And I'm pretty sure most people understand when you're going down the wrong path in life when you're younger, before you get older. And Sebastian, God put Sebastian in my life, and I accepted the responsibility. And God knew I would. Did I think I would be a good dad? No, before Sebastian, I had no idea. I was like, I don't really have the tolerance to deal with children. I'm working all the time. I have things I want to do in my life. But you forget those things when you become a parent. You forget what your life was before. I haven't thought about my life before Sebastian in a long time.
I think I appreciate him talking about Sebastian and reminding everybody watching that Sebastian is a real person. He's not just a missing person case. I think that he's being very honest. I think anybody who's ever been a parent before, regardless of the circumstances, regardless of your age, you wonder, can I do this? Am I going to be a good parent? Like, it's not like they send you home with a manual. Okay. Kids don't come with a manual. It's hard to be a parent. It's hard. Kind of scary.
I mean, I couldn't even tell you some of the things I did. Even before Sebastian came along, I mean, I can tell you that I was working 80, 90-hour weeks. You know, I was in the construction field, and I had goals. I had things I wanted to buy. I had cars that I was trying to restore. So before I met Katie and before Sebastian was born, I worked a lot, and I pretty much worked on cars in my off time when I wasn't at work.
So with Sebastian, these years from about 2.5 to 7, a lot of swimming. Tell us some other details about what you did with him, your parenting style. Tell us about Sebastian during that time frame.
Well, all children are different. So any type of parenting style that you think you're going to have with your first child, no. You end up wrapped around their pinky, and the next thing you know, you're playing with stuffed animals on the floor. You know, you're sitting there crawling around, crawling after them, trying to keep them entertained. I mean, there was many hours of watching Mickey Mouse Playhouse. I mean, he grew up as a Disney kid, you know. He was
okay. Listen, I got to say this because I thought this when I first saw it. You guys let me know what you guys think in the chat, okay? While I love a double exposure picture, I do. This one, as beautiful as it is, okay, I am wondering, I'm just going to say it. I'm just going to say it because people are going to feel how they feel, and I feel this way. I think this double exposure, showing it now while Seth is on the panel, I think this is in poor taste because you have one of the last photographs of Sebastian double exposed with a picture of him as a baby reaching out, which to me, it's a beautiful picture. And I would use it. I just wouldn't use it in this moment. That's all I got to say about this. I don't know. It just made me feel like, whoa, a little some type of way. I might have made a little face. But yeah, that's, you know.
I don't know. He was an interesting child growing up. I mean, if he wanted something, he would communicate. And you would either figure it out or he would continue to communicate with you. I mean, it's not like he was speaking English. So knowing that he had the chromosomal deletion syndrome, which we found out at about 6 months after his birth, the pregnancy was not really good for neither one of them. The hospital kind of screwed certain things. I mean, there was a lot of diaper changing, a lot of bottles being made. I mean, at the very beginning, you're just trying to make sure that your child survives.
I mean, yeah, I think we can all relate to what it is to be a new parent. It's hard. Like I said, they don't come with a manual. Justified says seems purposely put there to stir up feelings. Page says seems cruel, kind of. Yeah, it does. It's a beautiful picture, and I'm not trying to get onto Coffindaffer here, but I just feel like it just seems wrong place, wrong time. Coffindaffer, come on! I wouldn't have done it.
We spent a lot of time in the hospital. We spent a lot of time. Katie was, I want to say she was 5 days late on giving birth. The hospital kept saying that she wasn't dilating properly. By the time that, they gave her the epidural and then they gave her medication for her to be able to deliver Sebastian. I mean, Sebastian had already, I believe they call it marconium. I mean, it was not a simple textbook pregnancy and birth for Sebastian or for his mother.
So how old was Katie when she gave birth to Sebastian?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, damn. Coffindaffer went right there. I didn't think that she would, but she did. I mean, okay.
I'd have to remember when her birthday is, but Sebastian was born December 7th, 2008. I think she was 19 or 20. I don't remember. It's neither here nor there. I am not part of her life. The only thing that makes me part of her life was our son. And even then, I tried to stay out of her life because she wanted a divorce. Okay. Being married to me is a choice. It is not a demand. It is not a life sentence. It's, you took vows. If you don't feel that you can hold your vows anymore and you want out of it, then I don't. I mean, I don't know what you want me to say. She asked for a divorce. Only thing I fought for is joint legal and physical custody of Sebastian.
And so, how did you first know that there?
Okay, I will say this. A lot has been made about the divorce and the age and all that stuff. Okay, and I will say that Seth does get a little defensive when it comes up to that. And here's the thing about that is, look, you can tell, and he said it outright. Seth blames Katie because whatever happened, when we don't know what happened, it happened on her watch, and ultimately he blames her. And the truth of the matter is, this is not uncommon. This happens all the time in cases involving children, that one parent will blame the other parent, even though they had nothing to do with it, right? It happened on their watch. This is actually very common, and this is really when two people are married, when a child is missing and especially murdered, usually statistically they don't stay married. Marriages very rarely survive something like that. So it's not. I know that a lot has been made out of the blame and the anger and everything. Some people, and I think some people are just better at holding on to anger, and then some people don't. Look at Carly, Craig's case. Her stepfather, we were all shocked at how quickly he was able to move from the phases of grief into the forgiveness. Like he forgives Carly and he supports her. And we were all shocked about that because, quite frankly, it's not common. It's not, this is more common than anything, this reaction. So well, Shamina, there's been some accusations surrounding the age gap between Katie and Seth, and I'm just going to leave it there. There are other channels that have covered it. I don't know what to make of it, so I'm not going to say anything. I mean, but she asked about it, and I have to comment on what I see. I agree with that, Little Red, that the difference being that Carly is a child, okay? But even still, that's a real we're talking about 6 months. That's real fast. That's something that most people struggle with for years, okay? If you look at, oh God, what is her name? Pierce Morgan interviewed her. She was a teenager when she and her boyfriend and their friends came in to their house, murdered all of her family except for her stepfather, and including her brothers. Only her stepfather survived. I cannot think of her. I can see her face. She's blonde, and he hasn't forgiven. So, and she was a child. So, I mean, I think some people, Aaron Caffey, thank you. I knew one of you guys would know. It's just like, I don't have that data in my brain. Serial killers, yes. But for whatever reason, some of these just don't stick. Yeah, Shamina, you're very lucky that you don't know the other issues, babe, because there are a lot. And there are these issues actual issues? Are they issues that have been, it's real hard to say. And I don't think we will know those answers unless and until Sebastian is found. Unless and until there's resolution in this case, one way or the other. And I think everybody really is hoping for the resolution to be that Sebastian is found and he is returned home. That's the best resolution. Obviously, we're all aware that there's another resolution, and that would be the worst resolution of the situation. But we're not going to know anything about it. And we just don't know. And we don't know what role, if any, some of these other issues, contemporaneous issues, played into this case, because we don't know what happened. And I want to reiterate this. Katie is the last known person. Okay. She and Sebastian were in the Proudfoot home when he went missing. Okay. I think she heard something like a thud in the room coming from his room at about 10:30. She said, "What's going on?" He answered her, "It's fine." She said, "Go to bed." He said, "Okay." That was it. He's not there anymore at the house. There's no evidence of forced entry. The doors were, Katie reports that the doors were all locked when she woke up. So is it possible that there's a lot of scenarios that are still on the table at this point? So it is what it is. All right, let's keep going.
Was an issue. Was it just part of the prenatal care that you first knew there would be at least some issues in terms of this?
Sebastian, at birth, when we came home from the hospital, Sebastian on average would be awake for 18 to 20 hours a day. He didn't sleep. Every book that, we had read was average newborns will sleep anywhere from 16 to 18 hours a day because that they just sleep. Sebastian didn't sleep. Like I said, there was a lot of changing diapers, bottle feeding, playing with him on the floor, getting him to roll over and to move over and to play with him to get him to do stuff. Because you have to get those little muscles going. You got to start making sure that they're working.
And so as things are going, you said he swam before he ever walked. Was there anything else? Because I think that's pretty special, that you spent that time to teach him how to swim. Did he continue his love to water?
Well, he likes swimming pools, but he doesn't like to be dirty. So if it's not a swimming pool, he ain't getting in it. I mean, he likes to be clean. He does not like bugs. He doesn't like to be dirty, and he loves to swim. But just because he likes to swim doesn't mean he's really attracted to the water per se. He does not like to get dirty.
So when you initially, I'm gonna fast forward just a bit because there's a detail that some of our audience may or may not know. But when he went missing back on February 25th, there was one very specific detail that always bothered me. And I know you and I have talked a lot about it, and I've talked a lot about it on the show. And that was the fact he did not have shoes on. Did you?
We don't know. We don't know. I do know that when I walked into their house, I saw the shoes that I knew that he had at the front door.
I'll say this. I have to give props where props are due. Yes, Shamina, Sebastian is on the spectrum. I appreciate Seth really clarifying exactly what he means. He is saying that the shoes that he knew Sebastian had were by the front door. I think that is a good clarification, because he is, and in the past has not, and I think that he's come a long way. I think he's saying, look, I can only tell you what I observed. I am not aware of every single shoe that Sebastian may or may not have had. And I'm even willing to entertain the possibility that he had shoes I didn't even know about. These are the shoes I saw. Does that mean he left the house without shoes? You know, we don't know.
Is it fair to say? Oh, sorry, Seth.
It's their house. You know, the only thing I know is what I know. I know that the boots that I bought him were there. The tennis shoes that he had just, that his mom is supposed to bought him was there. And his old tennis shoes were there.
And is it fair to say, well,
okay, now I would like the chat to refresh my recollection if you could. Okay. The old tennis shoes. Wasn't there something about that? To the way that I remember it is that those old tennis shoes were in the trash. Is that not how you guys remember it? Justified said, are they still operating on the theory he left on his own? Well, I'm not sure. Seth does not believe that Sebastian left on his own accord. Okay. Chris and Katie, from what they have said, I have not ever heard, particularly Katie, ever come out and say explicitly that she believes Sebastian ran away. I think in the initial phases, before obviously the Amber Alert was issued, I think that law enforcement initially thought that because there was no sign of forced entry, because as far as we know, and because nothing like this has been reported, it's not like the house smelled like cleaner. Letitia, we're looking at you. And there are many other cases, just Letitia comes to mind right now. So I think that in the initial phases, I think that law enforcement did think that Sebastian ran away. I think as they learned more about Sebastian as a person, they felt like even if he did leave, of his own accord, meaning he actually physically got up out of his bedroom and left the house because he wanted to. Something else was amiss. And like maybe he was lured, something like that. Or he walked out and maybe he walked out of the house, because he just wanted to do a lap. Maybe he couldn't sleep. So he went to walk around the neighborhood and something happened. At any rate, it changed. And that I don't know what they think now. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry, Marlena. I didn't see your question. What is the criteria for an Amber Alert in Tennessee? All right, let's Google it. What is the criteria for an Amber Alert in All right, here we go. This comes from the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation. Amber Alert. The TBI reserves Amber Alerts for the most serious of missing children cases, in which law enforcement believes that a child is in imminent danger. In Amber Alerts, the TBI harnesses the strength of partner agencies, including TEMA, the Tennessee Association of Broadcasters, the National Weather Service, TDOT, and others to amplify the message of vital information about the missing child and, if available, the suspect, vehicle, and direction of travel. The TBI Missing Children's Clearinghouse for this is the Missing Children's. Geez, Jen, is it your first day on the planet? You can't read? The TBI is the Missing Children's Clearinghouse for the state and is the only agency in the state that can issue an Amber Alert. In order to issue an Amber Alert, the following criteria must be met. 1, the person is 17 years of age or younger, and the child is in imminent danger of bodily injury or death, and there is a description of the child, the abductor, or vehicle, and on a request from another state for activation, there is a direct and identified nexus to the state of Tennessee, and that information is conveyed to the TBI at the time of the request. Issuing an Amber Alert is not as simple as pressing a single button at TBI headquarters. Instead, it's a complex process requiring various layers of notification across Tennessee. The TBI places priority on notifying the media, the National Weather Service, TDOT, and TBI social media audience in an effort to quickly share information with the public at large. The TBI also works with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, NCMEC, to activate the cellular telephone network, billboards, and other secondary alert notifications. And so that is their criteria. Sorry about that, Marlene, I missed it. And Marlena is correct. No, there were no windows open, no doors unlocked. There was no footprints outside any of the windows. There was really just nothing, which makes it so difficult. All right, let's keep going.
I know she said he left without shoes, but is it fair to say that he only had a few shoes and a few things that were kept at that house?
No, it's not. Sebastian lived there and Sebastian lived here. So here he's got his own room, his own bedroom, a closet full of clothes, his motorcycle helmet. He's got his video game systems. that well, he's got his PlayStation 3 that's in his room, his own TV that's in his room. He had his Switch, which hooked up to his TV that the sheriff's department still hasn't given me back. The only thing that he would bring from there to here on a regular basis was his cell phone.
And part of my comment about that was related very specifically to.
Okay. So, for some reason, and it's unknown to us, the sheriff's department still has Sebastian's Switch. I don't know what that's about. It is interesting that they still have it.
To something that was said by Chris Proudfoot, the stepfather, and that was there was a situation where he, meaning Sebastian, angered Chris Proudfoot, and Chris Proudfoot, it had to do with him cleaning his room, and he wasn't cleaning his room to Chris Proudfoot's specifications, and so Chris Proudfoot said he threw many things away. And I want to understand, that's my understanding, that he took everything and as a punishment to Sebastian threw many of these things away. Now, I want to tell you exactly where I heard this. I heard this from Chris Proudfoot's own mouth. So I'm not repeating rumor, and I'm not repeating any hearsay. I'm repeating words I heard with my own ears out of Chris Proudfoot's mouth. So that's why I mentioned that.
Since Sebastian went missing, I have been on many, many interviews. I have been all over the internet trying to spread awareness that my son is missing. And I've seen a lot of the stuff that Mr. Proudfoot has stated and said, including listening to him talk about using a belt on my son's buttocks. And he's even stated that he has slapped my son across his belly. I mean, he has stated that he's done a lot of things to my son. It just seems that Sumner County doesn't care.
Okay, so Shamina said, I thought they normally keep any evidence until the investigation is over. Yes, they do. However, and this is another thing, evidently, they also took his gaming systems from the Proudfoot home, but those were returned. Twister Investigation says, hey, the ward case studies. Hey, he did play on, I think you meant Switch. Some games attract predators. Oh, absolutely. Look, here's the deal. The internet is not a safe place, period. It is not safe at all. The internet is, after all, it starts with worldwide. Okay. In the world, there are good people and there are bad people. That's just the way that it is. And predators are, they target children, and they know how to do it in a way that is not scary to the child, doesn't come across as, they ask innocuous questions like, what was the weather? What was your weather like today? Stuff like that. So that children are not on guard in that way. They are very disarming. That is why they are predators. That is what they do. That is who they are at the cellular level. And there are infinite possibilities if a child has access to the internet and goes missing. I figured that's what you meant, Switch. I figured you meant Switch. I know autocorrect be getting me too. Kim says, look at the way we behave as adults just in this sector. Definitely not safe for children. Remy said, the internet is a bad person's playground. People often forget that. Death by Chocolate says, Roblox is awful. Yes. Paige Turner said the warrant last year took other electronics, so we don't really know what they currently have. Do we know? We don't. I only know that Seth has said that electronics from the Proudfoot home were taken and then returned. Were they taken again? We don't know. There's a lot. This is why this case is so difficult. We there's a lot of things that we just do not know. Justified said, I watched on Sean Ryan, they went on Roblox something like 20 seconds for a perv to initiate. Yeah, Roblox is extremely dangerous. I know that my little nuggie watches A for Adley or G for Gaming, because they're the same. And they play Roblox. And she's always asking me, well, Granny, when I'm 6, when I'm 7, when I'm 8, when I'm 9, like she'll keep asking, and I told her, well, Nugs, that no, I'm never going to think that it's safe. So, what did Kim say? What did you? Remy said, curious if they took them, extracted everything, then returned them. I mean, the thing is, we don't know. We absolutely do not know. But I will say this, okay? When this case first broke, and as we learned more details, some from law enforcement, and then obviously anything that we learned from either set of parents, obviously, unless law enforcement comes out and says, yes, this is true, or this is not true, or whatever, right? It is subjective, right? But after the filings came out and I was reading through those, and I've read through the DCS one is the most interesting to me, not because I just feel like the one against Sumner County Sheriff's Office, I just don't think that's going to go anywhere. I really don't. I think the one that has really any chance of making it past the dismissal is the DCS one. So that one I've read multiple times. And I think that what I've gleaned from that filing is that the homes themselves seemed at odds with one another. The parents weren't really the specific parents, Katie and Seth, whether it's a justified reason, a good reason, a bad reason, it doesn't matter. The reason behind it makes no difference. Whether the reason was good or bad makes zero difference. But the bottom line is Katie and Seth were not communicating. They went through Chris. That's just how it was. And Sebastian's, 15 years old. I can assure you that this was not a new situation and that he picked up on it. I mean, it is what it is. So, yeah. It's the home, in my opinion, was chaotic. And if we take the filing at face value and assume that what's in there is the truth. Okay. Let me put it this way. The truth of the way the attorney and Seth see it. Okay. I think that, I don't think that I think one of the things that nobody would argue with is that, Sebastian needed help and asked for help a few times. Okay. And if he did that and it's documented, it's very possible that if he were online, that he would be particularly vulnerable because he seemed like he was really struggling. And I think that would make him particularly vulnerable. That's what I'll say. So I think that it makes the possibility of him having been lured that much stronger.
And so when
the last time I checked, I don't have to read you your Miranda rights to hold you responsible for any type of abuse that you've done because you voluntarily admit it.
So when it comes to this civil suit that's related to DCS, is it fair to say, without compromising anything you're not allowed to say, is it fair to say that at the crux of that is how Sebastian Rogers was treated, the sexual abuse prior with another male that was in the Proudfoot home that later left?
With the DCS reports, the fact is that I knew about the first one because I got a phone call. All right, I got a phone call from the school. I got a phone from the resource officer of that school, which is in Sumner County, from another deputy sheriff who happens to have the same last name as me. Coincidence? I thought it was kind of funny. But when I answered the phone, it was Deputy Rogers. This is Deputy Rogers looking for Mr. Rogers. And I was like, that's funny because, I'm a deputy as well, and my last name is Rogers, but there was no relation. But I went to the school and I found out what was going on, and I had to explain to them what happened in California, which put DCS in the school on the same page of the stuff that had happened in California with Sebastian. But after that initial one, I was never contacted about any of the others. So after the initial contact between me, the school, and the resource office, that was it. That was it.
So after that, CPS basically, I keep calling them CPS, that's the overarching, DCS, in a nutshell, closed the file, if you will, didn't keep things going forward or moving forward in terms of their concern or taking action regarding Sebastian. Is that?
No, I'm just saying that they didn't contact me as more cases were opened.
Okay. So there were more cases opened. They did not contact you as his father, and that is part of the suit. That is part of the issue.
Correct.
And so when we're talking about that, because I get the whole point of this, is that, at least in my opinion, if you have proper supervision over a child, over somebody who is on the autism spectrum and has other issues, that if that is not followed up on, if that is not pursued in terms of home visits, in terms of what was best for Sebastian, what environment was best, that is at the crux of then why he later goes missing.
With any state organization, there's, like I said, there's rules and policies that you're supposed to follow. It's not just to safeguard yourself in your job, but it's to safeguard the recipient, the people who receive the services. You're supposed to be safeguarding them. When I had to get an attorney, after I heard Chris talk about how many times, when he sat there and stated, oh, it's the same lady from the previous visit, that told me that there was at least two that I did not know about. Because like I said, I knew about one, the initial one, in which turn I explained to Sumner County and to the school what happened in California. But after that, there was no communication between them and me. So with DCS not communicating with me that there was open cases, that my son was stating that he only felt safe at my house. And
hold on, I want to rewind this part because this is where it becomes unclear. Strictly going by the filing, there were two cases mentioned. The September 2022, and then, which was the first mentioned, and then May of 2023. That's the second one. Now, what's unclear is the first one that's mentioned in the filing the actual first one? I tend to think that it is, because Seth mentions a school resource officer, and in the filing, it mentions school personnel. I don't think that they're okay. So Remy said, okay, so I'm not the only one thinking, hey, this is unclear. There were two with California years prior constantly being brought up. Yeah. It's unclear. Is there another instance where the situation in California, and I'm calling it that. I know it's not a situation. I know exactly what it is, but I think that we all know what I'm talking about. I don't think that I need to continue to repeat it. Not because I'm trying to water it down or diminish what Sebastian went through in any way, shape, or form. But the fact of the matter is, I just think out of respect, how would I want this talked about? And that's how I'm doing it. Okay. I wouldn't want it repeated over and over, the nitty gritty. Okay. That's how I would feel about it. So I'm just going to do unto others as I'd have done unto me, not as they've done unto me, as some people interpret. It's basically treat others the way you want to be treated. Okay. So that's what we're going to do over here. It's very confusing. Are they talking about, was there another time that DCS was called regarding the situation, what happened, the incident in California? That's what's unclear. No, okay. Paige Turner says, I think someone spoke to someone at the school. I think Sebastian spoke to someone at the school in Tennessee about the incident in California. Maybe. Yes, that is clear. That part, that is clear. But the way that Seth is explaining it and referring, and then there is in the actual filing itself where Katie is quoted as saying something to the effect of, I guess I should pull it up. But she says something to the effect of, this happened in California. It was years ago. Why does this keep getting brought up? Which implies that there was more than one situation where DCS became involved regarding the incident in California. And that's what's not clear. What else is not clear about what Seth is saying is he's saying he knew about the first. All right. Do you mean you knew about the first incident with DCS because you were contacted by DCS, you were talked to by DCS? That's not clear either. That's what's not clear. Marlena says, wasn't there an incident in California where Seth and Katie got into a big argument and Seth punched a wall? Was CPS involved then? This is what I know. I know that there was an incident in California that CPS became involved, and this came out of Seth's mouth. This is Seth's recollection of what happened. Seth says that Seth's account is this. Sebastian went to school and told the teacher that Seth was going to, quote, beat his ass. And CPS contacted Seth, and Seth explained to Sebastian what beating somebody's ass was, and he illustrated what an ass beating is by playing Mortal Kombat with blood mode turned on. So that is what Seth says, as far as that I can remember. regarding CPS being involved in California. California CPS being involved in a situation. Hannah says, just because it's in a report doesn't make it true. And just because it's in a court filing doesn't make it true. My eyes are stuck in the back of my head at some YouTubers jumping at the bit to drag Chris Proudfoot and Katie Proudfoot. Absolutely. What we know from the filing is this. They are allegations. As Emily D. Baker would say, they are allegations and shade. That's what these kinds of things are. Okay. It doesn't make them true. It doesn't. And there are a lot of, we're getting bits and pieces of reports, right? Not the full report. Okay. So we don't know all of the context surrounding, we don't know each and everything that was asked by DCS, and we don't know the responses of the respective parties. We don't have the full report from either of the incidents referenced in the filing. Okay. So, and also the filing is, there are quotes in it. So we know that some of the information came directly from actual reports. But some of the other language reads as more of an interpretation of a report. So there is that. Let's keep going. So bottom line is this situation with Tennessee's Department of Children's Services being involved in the circumstances in California is unclear. It is unclear if there was more than one time Tennessee became involved because of something that goes back to California. Okay. And also I have to ask this just came into my mind. Okay. So, I haven't really had time to completely put it in a perfect package for you guys, but if the purpose and intention of the lawsuit is to prove and demonstrate that DCS knew things were not good, that Sebastian was in danger, that he was at risk and should have been removed from that home. And not only did they fail to act upon it, but they also failed to inform the father of any of the investigations that they were conducting in that home. Then why would they mention in that filing the September 2022 incident? Because if that is the quote unquote first incident of DCS becoming involved with Sebastian, okay, and the allegation and what they have to prove is that Seth wasn't notified, but Seth is saying, I knew about the first one, then why include that? The only thing that I can think of is the reason to include that is because at that time, that is when the Title 4-3 candidacy became a thing. This whole removal from the home okay? That is when that happened. But by May of 2023, it was determined Sebastian was no longer qualified for that. It's a little fuzzy. All right, let's keep going.
He was scared to death of his stepfather. There was no communication for me to do anything with. So I was in the dark. They literally just left me in the dark. And DCS, CPS cannot be the parents of the child. They're just to make sure that the child is being taken care of. If there's any issues or whatnot, they should have had communication with me.
So the allegation. Go ahead.
If I had known that DCS, these reports, if I had known anything in these reports, it wouldn't have mattered if I could get him into the program here or not. He would have been here. I make sacrifices for my kids because my kid deserves it.
Okay. So here's my question. Okay. And this is something that if you guys know the answer to this, please let me know in the chat. I'm not omnipotent. I can't be everywhere and I can't see everything. But there was a discussion that occurred between Seth, Katie, and Chris about Sebastian going to live with Seth. Okay. Now, at one point, it's been said that Seth wanted to give Sebastian a year. At another point, it was said that Katie was not on board with it. At one point, it's been said that Sebastian wanted to go and live with his father. At another, it's also been said that Sebastian was not all that enthused about going and living with his father because his father was going to have him homeschooled and he wanted to be in in-person school. And that, so this is where it then becomes interesting. Let me do this. Let's just pull up this. Hold on. Okay. Because this is important. Death by Chocolate said there were 2 cases in Tennessee. Although some of the information was pertaining to California, the case concerned fears Sebastian Rogers had about his stepfather. Yes. In the filing, the 2 cases referenced with DCS happened in Tennessee. They are Tennessee DCS. One case was that the first case that's listed. Okay, hold on. Let me scroll right to it. There's a case ID number. It's an SA abuse investigation, September through November of 2022. Okay, now the reason it's listed as September through November is because, well, first of all, to be fair, it happened on September 28th. There are only 30 days in September. No. We're all confused, babe. We're all confused by this. Don't be sorry because we're all confused. And I think the only way for us, I'm just going to say this because I think this needs to be said. There are some questions at this point in time we are just not going to get answers to. Not right now. Okay. There are some things that we can somewhat answer and try to make it less confusing. Chicken lady? Technically, there are 3 cases in Tennessee now because of his disappearance. Yes. However, let's just really go for it. According to And Allie and I we're working on this as well. And we're not there yet. But when Seth went to get these reports, okay, from DCS in Tennessee, when he requested them, he had to use an attorney to request them. It was a family law attorney. They got them. They were released to Seth. The number of cases is what's in question. We don't even know that either. We don't even know that either. We don't actually know the total number of cases that involve Sebastian in Tennessee's DCS, whether they be open or closed. Just the total number. That includes open cases and closed cases. We don't even know that. What we know from the filing, what is mentioned in the filing is 2 specific cases. In that narrative, okay, of the filing, it says the intake reported that on September 28th, 2022, Sebastian disclosed to a school professional that 2 years earlier, while living in California with his mother, that is the incident in California. Okay. Hold on a second. Grateful says, good morning. Good morning to you. I will have to go back and listen from the beginning later. I want to understand your stance on this respectfully. Thanks. My stance on this is I think that we still have, with respect to the lawsuits, specifically the DCS lawsuit, I think that the lawsuit against the Sumner County Sheriff's Office is pretty straightforward and kind of doesn't really leave a lot of room for doubt. It's this one. The one against DCS is the one that I think is murky. I think if there is a chance for these lawsuits to get past the dismissal phase, it's the DCS one. That one has, in my estimate, this one has the better chance of the two. What I'm trying to suss out is, what is Seth talking about? Is the September to November 2022 case, is that the first case, the first time DCS had contact with Sebastian and the Proudfoots? And if it is, and Seth says he knew about it, okay, you knew about it. What does that mean? You knew that DCS has been contacted? Did DCS contact you with this one? If that's the case, that's where it's murky. That's what I'm trying to get to the bottom of. What exactly is he talking about? What exactly does he mean? And at this point, frankly, I still don't know. It's still unclear. I'm hoping, though, that maybe we can get it a little clearer listening to what he has to say. Well, this is what's interesting. Chicken Lady said, I think he knew that DSS had been contacted, but DSS never contacted him. Well, here's the thing about that, okay? In the filing, let's go right to it. The allegation is that had he been contacted by DCS, this is what he would have said. Hold on. Where's it at? Hold on. I want to find it for you. Give me just a second, you guys. Oh, I know where it's at. Give me a second. I'm sorry, you guys. I thought I did. Okay, here it is right here. Had DCS fulfilled this most basic obligation, it would have learned critical information that was never captured in the case file. Rogers would have told DCS investigators that Sebastian had expressed to him on multiple occasions that he was more comfortable with Rogers than Proudfoot, and that Sebastian was afraid of Proudfoot because he believed Proudfoot would hurt him if he disclosed what was happening. Rogers would have informed DCS that Proudfoot had ridiculed Sebastian about the prior SA, compounding Sebastian's existing trauma and making Sebastian even less likely to disclose abuse to any adult he believed would report back to the Proudfoot household. Rogers would further have told DCS that Katie had spoken to him on multiple occasions in terms that evidenced her frustration with and hostility towards Sebastian, telling Rogers repeatedly how fed up she was with Sebastian for his ongoing incidents of soiling and wetting himself, the very bathroom incidents that Sebastian's therapist had documented as a known consequence of his sexual traumas. Rogers would have advised DCS that Sebastian's mental state had been deteriorating, that his behavior problems were worsening, and that Sebastian himself appeared increasingly distressed in the period leading up to the investigation. DCS already possessed documentation of Sebastian's escalating behavioral issues. A minimally competent investigator would have recognized Sebastian's worsening condition not as a fixed background fact, but as a contemporaneous warning sign that something in Sebastian's living environment was causing him active harm. Okay. If we take this upon its face value, that specific part, well, if you knew that there was one investigation, why didn't you reach out to DCS at any point? If all of these things were occurring in the way that you say they were, why didn't you reach out to anybody at any time with your concerns? And the reason I ask that is not because I'm being judgmental. I'm not. Okay? Hindsight is 20/20. Always. It goes without saying. But these are the questions. If this makes it past the dismissal phase, these are the questions the other side, in this case, the attorneys for DCS, are going to ask. This is going to be asked of him. So I don't want people to think, oh, you're just criticizing him. You're ready to dismiss it on its face. No, I'm not. But this is what the other side is going to ask. They're absolutely going to ask, well, why didn't you? Why didn't you?
My son deserves everything that I can give him.
So your point of first, go ahead, Seth. Sorry.
Parents are supposed to protect their children. That means we have to sacrifice certain things for our children. We sacrifice our stuff for our children.
Oh, wait a minute. I also just thought of something. Shmita here. Where you at, Shmita? Shmita celebrates 45 months of membership. Love you. Love you too. Listening while I cook. Yum. Thank you for supporting me, babe. 45 years, 45 months. That's a day one. I appreciate you, babe. And I love you. Yes, Neat. Neat says, I'm wondering why Seth didn't report this himself. And I hesitate saying that because I'm not blaming. Let me see where the rest of your comment is. It's like, oh, that's Remy. That's not the rest of Neat's comment. Hold on. My bad. Yeah, that's how I feel. And the truth is, they're absolutely going to, like Remy's saying here, they're going to flip that right back on Seth, thinking as the defense that will be used against him. It will. If you knew these things, now, this is the other part of that, knowing things, okay? Rogers would further have told DCS that Katie had spoken to him on multiple occasions in terms that evidenced her frustration with and hostility towards. Here's the thing about that. When did that happen? When were these conversations? When? Because, and this adds, okay, if the Seth has maintained online, okay, that the communication that existed between he and Katie typically went through Chris Proudfoot. It couldn't have always gone through Chris Proudfoot because they weren't all, it's not like Katie divorced Seth and immediately married Chris Proudfoot. I think there was like some time in between, if I'm not mistaken, if I remember the timeline correctly. Hold on a second. But I think what this is evidence of is the chaos that existed in Sebastian's life between Katie and Seth. That sometimes they could talk, sometimes they couldn't talk, sometimes they. Who else would you speak to? Who else would you speak to about frustrations you're having with your child? When I was raising my children, I spoke to their father. Who else is going to help you parent? I mean, yeah, like I had friends and stuff, and but for me personally, the way that it was for my parenting experience, I was a very young mother. I was 18 when I had my oldest son, 19 when I had my second, 21 when I had my oldest daughter, and 28 when I had my fourth daughter. So I'm only talking about being a young mother with the first three. 28 is a reasonable age. But none of my friends had kids because I was young. So it's not like I had friends that I could talk to. When my friends did have kids, guess who they came to for advice? Me, because I'd been there and done that. But when I had a parenting issue or a parenting concern with my oldest son, I would speak to my husband about it. And together we would talk about how I could speak to his father. So it's not that it's not, I don't understand why this is brought up in this capacity. It just, there's something about all of this that doesn't sit right with me. But at this point, there's nothing that I can specifically cite or put my finger on. And I'm also, I don't want to speak and say something that I regret and can't take back, which is why I am going to take a wait and see approach. However, there are things that are contained in this filing that I think if we're going to talk about it, we're going to critically analyze it, we have to at least have discussions about what the respondent in this case, DCS, is going to bring up.
Don't sacrifice our children for us.
And so when it comes to the lawsuit concerning DCS, your hope is to bring change,
Yes.
bring awareness.
Yes. You know,
Your question isn't ignorant, Grateful. Don't you worry about that. Grateful said, I apologize if my question is ignorant. Was CP just extremely controlling that he stood between Sebastian Rogers and Seth's mom? Do you mean, are you meaning like, was Chris Proudfoot so controlling that he insisted on being the go-between between Katie and Seth, that he didn't want Katie and Seth having communication? I know that has been an allegation. Okay. This is what I'll say about that. My opinion is no, and here's why. My opinion is based on things that Seth has said. You know, one thing that before any of the lawsuits, Seth never minced words. And when it came to how he felt or what he thought about Chris Proudfoot. Okay. And the fact of the matter is, if that were the circumstances, I think Seth would have just said it. I think Seth would have just said, Katie and I don't communicate because Chris Proudfoot doesn't allow us to communicate. I think he would have just said it. I think that the most likely scenario is that I think that it was Katie who did not want to have communication with Seth, justified or unjustified, because she's not really talked about that. So to be fair to her, I don't want to say it was unjustified. There are people in this world and there are relationships that occur and produce children. And the truth of the matter is, if these people did not have a child together, and I'm not talking about this circumstance, I'm just saying in general, where if they didn't have children or a child or children together, these people would never communicate, think about one another. That happens all the time. The only reason why why they're in each other's lives at all is because they have a child or children in common. That happens. And I think that there are other situations where, for whatever reason, every reason, all the reasons on both parties, there is an absolute breakdown of communication, in that communication between the two parties is not, no matter how they try, it's never productive. And so, I mean, it happens. In fact, there are now in states where there's an app for parents co-parenting who absolutely the communication is completely unproductive, that there's an app where they communicate. So it happens. Just happens. Hold on. Let me see what Grateful said. Let's scroll back up. All right. I think these are all good questions. These are things that have come up. And even though this lawsuit is Seth Rogers versus the DCS, this is the one we're talking about. So it's not Seth Rogers versus DCS and Chris and Katie Proudfoot, right? It's not that. Because he's brought this lawsuit, other prior statements that he has made will likely come into question, will likely become part of the record. And I think that I think that for this part of what we just referenced, this whole Katie had expressed frustration or whatever, I think it's likely that there might be a little getting into why Seth and Katie could not communicate directly. I think this has the potential in some ways to get very messy. And I think an already very difficult situation that exists between this family, I think that there is clearly a divide. And I think at this point, I don't think that there's, I don't know. I hope it's not true. I hope that they can come back together as a family and work together, not only to find Sebastian, but once he is found, once this case has resolution one way or the other, they're all going to be impacted, and they'll all have to come together as a family to handle it. And I hope that can happen.
My dad always said, don't point out the problems, come with a solution. Well, I've been personally affected by the problems within it, and I'm working on a solution as well. So this isn't just one of these things of, here's the problems, they need to figure out how to fix it. We can see the problems. The problems are pretty blatant. And the fact is that I'm coming with a solution for these problems. Communication would be a good one, but I obviously, from my point of view, where the lack of communication has led to my son not being here, to being lost.
And Seth, you talk about being lost. I just want to make it clear for the record. Is your opinion on this case that he is still with us? In other words, alive?
It has never changed, Jennifer.
Oh, I know. It's never once changed. I just want to make sure that nothing has changed since I talked to you last. I understand your position has always been he is alive. And I just wanted to make sure and let the listeners know.
Unless I have evidence that states otherwise, my son is here on this planet. He is lost, and I need people to help me find my son. I need people to see his face and look for him whenever they're out. If they can hand out flyers, I'd appreciate that. If they could talk about my son in a positive light and not some of these nasty rumors that people have started and spread in the last 2.5 years, which are pretty disgusting. He is an innocent child. It's not like he was out here running with a bad crew, breaking and stealing into cars, creating mischief that needed to be answered by police involvement. He was in a situation where the police involvement should have protected him. Where DCS should have protected him.
Well, I have to tell you that when I saw this coming, and Tony alluded but did not tell me what was going to happen, and I was so happy to see this filing, because I truly believe that
I'm not. I am not that I have to go and file lawsuits to point out where they failed my son. I should not be in this situation. If they had just had communication and actually called me, spoke to me, told me what was going on, I would not be here on your panel today. It's Saturday. Sebastian wouldn't be in school. Me and Sebastian would probably be just coming home from fishing, because we would have been fishing this morning. Weather was great. It's not overcast and raining and lightning. It's a little cloudy. No sunburn as much. But we would have been out fishing this morning. We might have been fishing all night long. There's nothing like going and doing Friday night fishing. Today's Saturday. We would be going to the game shop. We'd be playing Magic the Gathering. Shop always has tournaments on Saturday. It was like one major thing that we would do on a day. Either we go fishing because it takes a minute to load up the truck, and then we're going to be out there for a couple hours. Then he's going to want to eat food. And depending on, do you want to go ahead and pick up hot dogs and make like sandwiches and stuff when we go out there and build a fire and cook it over the flame? Or do you want to go get something to eat afterwards? Or do you want me to cook when we get home? That way I know what to do. These are these are conversations that we had, so that me and him would be on the same page. Like if he wants me to make something for dinner, then I need to pull it out of the freezer so it's defrosted by the time we come home. So, I can start making dinner when we come home. I use taking a shower, all these sort of things. And then, Wednesdays were normally D&D. Happens on Sundays too. Saturdays, there's Magic the Gathering tournaments. I mean, my son's not here, and the things that we've done together, I don't even take pleasure in even doing them anymore. I haven't played a single game of Magic since my son went missing. I've tried to go to D&D. Tony was like, you need to do something that you normally do to bring yourself, to ground yourself. And it's like, I can't go be around people that were around Sebastian. It just doesn't feel the same.
Okay, I want to point this out because I missed this the first go around. Like I said, FIFA came on, and this is a part that I missed. So I find this very interesting, and I say this not as a criticism. I say this because I think it gives us perspective. Sebastian is now 16. Okay. He's talking about things that Sebastian liked and did, and the things that they did together and things they enjoyed doing together at 15, which leads me to believe, this is just my opinion, and I am not qualified, I'm not diagnosing him or anything, but to me, what it sounds like, what I hear, and I think this gives us a perspective on when you listen. I think if you take this in, consider it, and if you ultimately decide, hey, maybe what I'm saying has some validity to it, when you listen to Seth in the past, from the things he said in the past and now going forward, I think this is something to keep in mind. To me, what it sounds like is that Seth is still stuck on February 26th, 2024, which is very, very common. He's still reliving. Time has gone on around, because time does, everyone else. But for Seth, he's still in that day, in that moment. And so I think when he talks about things, particularly with respect to sometimes the stuff with Katie. I think that I now hearing this, will keep that in mind, going and listening to the things he said in the past, and also listening to things that he said in the future. To him, he is continuously reliving that that text, and then the subsequent phone call, and over and over and over. And that's the truth of it. It's sad.
These are all kids that are Sebastian's age that are playing.
Oh, and one other thing that I want to say before I forget. I don't know Seth on any level. I've never spoken to him. I don't know Chris or Katie on any level. I've never spoken to them. The only things that I know are the things that they themselves have said publicly. And I always keep in mind that I've only come into contact with them after the worst thing that's ever happened to them has happened, which is their son is missing. I don't know them from before. I don't know what they were like before. And so when I offer grace, it is because of that. I'm willing to offer them. I'm willing to give grace. And I try very, very hard not to say, well, if it were me, I would. Have I ever done that in the past? Well, yeah. But one thing that covering true crime has taught me is that when I make those statements, I'm making those statements from the safest place on the planet. I'm not in their shoes. I've never been in their shoes. I've never even been in the store where they buy their shoes. I've never even come close. So to say, I think I would do A, B, or C, or I wouldn't do X, Y, and Z, I'm saying that from a safe place. I have no idea. The truth of the matter is, it's my opinion that I have no idea how I would handle any of the things the way if they happened to me. If this were my situation, I don't know how I would handle it, what I would do, what I would say, what I wouldn't do, what I would or wouldn't do. I don't know, because I haven't been in their shoes, and I hope to God I never am. All right. Let me get down off my soapbox and let's keep going.
In D&D, and then of course their parents are there, and we're playing D&D too, but my son's not there. My son's not sitting, next to me, playing with his guys, coming up with some weird things for his character to do, and hopefully survive and not roll a one. I don't have. It's not the same. Things aren't the same. I don't understand how.
They never will be the same again, Seth. One thing that I have heard from parents in these circumstances, no matter how their case is resolved, I think of like the case with Steven Stainer, who was kidnapped back in the 80s. And then the man who kidnapped him kidnapped another child when Steven was 14 years old. And Steven got that child and they escaped. And then he told authorities what was going on. His parents, specifically his mother, came out and talked about what it was, like to have Steven home. And it doesn't go back. There's once nothing ever stays the same, really, if you think about it. You know what I mean? Once something has happened, good or bad, it changes you. So you're never the same, and things are never the same. No, Remy said, you weren't on group calls. Sorry, I had to be petty for a second. No, never.
People can go on about living their life. My life hasn't been the same. Sebastian's not here. Your child goes missing. You just don't move on with your life. I don't know how people can. He's missing. He needs to be found. The fact that I have to file lawsuits to hold people responsible to get some accountability for the job that they were hired and what they're paid to do is very sad. It's sad that these cases have to be filed.
Well, I think it's important.
Remy said, I appreciate you allowing my pettiness to shine through. You know what my saying is, Remy? You don't have to get petty if you stay petty. Hold on.
Important for people to understand the relationship you have and why this is so hard, because it's a daily thing. Tell us, Seth, remind everybody, please, what exactly was the process you were in? Where were you in that process for getting Sebastian full-time when he went missing?
When he went missing, I was waiting for the end of the school year. Clarksville, Montgomery County they have a program for homeschooling here, and it's a long list because every parent wants their kid on it. Once they get onto this program, it gives them access to be able to go to Austin Peay State University up here in Montgomery County. It gives them access to a lot of their tech classes that they're like coding, computers, things that people are going to be using later on when they get older, things that some people are already seeing like AI, stuff like that that's affecting people's jobs, and Austin Peay works with the children in this program to take college classes, college courses, so that they can it's just a head start. It's a start Sebastian likes video games. Sebastian likes D&D. He likes doing the things that we do, and that's all using your brain. For him, it's interactive. And him being in the program would start him. It'd give him more information than that I have. It's not like people use MySpace anymore. MySpace was the beginning of showing everybody how to code, but Facebook kind of took that away. It was a set him on a track so that he had a skill that he could use to get where he wanted to go.
Okay. So that's his answer. He was waiting for the end of the school year. And then Sebastian was going to come and live with him. Also, Tom, everybody's first friend from MySpace. Let me see what he says next, and then I think we're going to switch to his panel, because I think we got the gist of it from here.
And explain to us, Seth, because I think some of the listeners might not know. Explain to us about just how smart he was. That there are different levels on the spectrum of autism. I want to hear where he was in terms of academically, speech, savvy, understanding, computer skills. Give us an outline to Sebastian.
Well, getting Sebastian to take like an IQ test or something like that was not his forte. He really didn't like to stay in one spot unless he was attached to the video game system, to the Switch, or he was reading underneath his bed. He's never seen me do that, and he never saw pictures of me as a child doing that. But watching him be in his room with his flashlight underneath the bed, watching him, and it was flashbacks to my childhood when I was underneath my bed reading a book. They always show in movies that they're underneath the covers on the top, reading the book with a flashlight. I was under my bed. Sebastian was under his bed, reading a book with a flashlight in the middle of the day. And I'm like, son, I remember telling him, if you're going to do it, it's fine. But can you turn the light off in your room at least? It's pretty bright in your room, even with the light off, but you got the light on and you're underneath the book. You're underneath the bed with a flashlight.
So he liked to read. He liked to read underneath the bed. What about conversation? Tell us about conversation. I have this great clip where he says something like green tea, milk, or something like that. I play it every once in a while. I just played it the other day. Was he a jokester? Is that his sense of humor?
Yes. Sebastian would find things funny. Most children on
Yes. Hakab, thank you. Sebastian is 17 now. He will be 18 this year. No. Yes. Right? Yeah, he will be 18 this year because he turns his birthday is December 7th. It is Coffindaffer. Yep, grateful. That's who that is. I'm sorry, I misspoke earlier. I apologize.
On the scale, we'll find certain things funny.
I apologize to Sebastian. I should know that your age, and that's rude of me, and I apologize. I ain't apologizing to you fools. Just
and
kidding.
then kind of, like beat the joke until it's dead type funny. And, it's like, well, son, you done killed the joke. I mean, but I think it's still funny, Dad. And I'm like, you can still think it's funny. That's cool, but I think you've killed the joke. And I mean, the conversations, we had everyday conversations. When I talk about what do you want for dinner, and I'm talking to my son, that can lead into a full conversation. Because the first thing that's going to come out of his mouth is, I don't know. And then probably a little bit later, it's going to be, I don't care. And then it's like, do you want me to make something or do you want to go out to eat? I want you to make something. Okay. I'm going to go make something then. Whether it's I'm sauteing mushrooms for a mushroom and cheese omelet, or if I'm cooking, brats to sit there and, slice and dice them all up into spaghetti, or if I'm doing a lasagna, or if I'm making salmon, and that got him into the kitchen with me, because he would sit there, and I would sit there and start cooking, and he would be playing video games, and then I'd turn around and he'd be like, cook. And I'm like, okay, yes, I heard you coming. No, you did not scare me. Are you here to help? And he was like, yeah, it smells good. What can I do to help? And it's just that simple thing that got him into wanting to help cook, wanting to create in the kitchen. And you got to take the opportunities wherever you find them with your kids to teach and watch them grow. And I enjoyed that.
I agree. I have heard it often said that when you want to speak to boys specifically, when you really want to talk to them about, like, have a meaningful conversation with them, that the best thing to do is be doing something, keeping their hands busy, that they're far more apt to talk to you and be open with you if you keep them busy, if you keep their hands busy. So now we're going to switch to him talking on his own panel. Let me fix this closed captions. We're going to speed it up a little bit. We're not going to watch all of this. I put the links in the description for both of these, the panels, for you guys. So if you want to go back and watch the full thing later, then we can. I do want to say this. Neat said, accidentally deleted your comment about Stephen Kim. I apologize. It was fine. And I agree. That was so sad. So just in case, Kim, you're not reading the chat. There you go. Neat is sorry. It was on an accident. All right, here we go.
This evening. Wow, chat is definitely moving faster than I can see what's going on. I will say hi to everybody.
Twister investigation. Sorry, I can't read. Apparently reading is not a skill I possess today. Maybe it'll come back to me tomorrow. Says investigation might not want to work with Seth no more because he wants to sue. Look, the truth of the matter is you're not wrong. You're not wrong. The facts are that that's a distinct possibility. That if which I think Seth has been advised of by his attorney, that if he thought that there was a communication breakdown between him and law enforcement before, well, now they're not going to be allowed to talk to him at all because he's suing. And they're going to have been advised by their counsel not to speak to him. So, yeah, that's a distinct possibility. And then, moving forward, no matter how it goes, whether he wins and they lose or they win and he loses, no matter how it goes, this is not conducive to opening up lines of communication. But I actually don't think that's the point of this lawsuit. I think that that's what I think, and I'm going to leave it now. That's how I'm going to leave it at this point. I might have more to say later, but right now that's it. So let me just shush it.
Now I've got a few people that's going to come up on panel because people want to ask questions. This is pretty much going to be a Q&A about the filing. Anything that is stated in the filing, I can speak about. If it's not in the filing and it's coordinated with DCS, then obviously I can't speak about it.
All right. So now
I do again appreciate everybody that's here. Our first guest on panel will be none other but.
All right, let's
the
see where
Betty.
He gets everybody.
Hello,
up
my
here.
guys. Hello, my loves. Hello. I hope everybody is like Sebastian's army, but I think first,
Hold on.
No, we haven't.
That's in.
Okay,
Like
I'm not-
really
I think you went both of them.
Well, hello, guys.
Hi.
Is your camera? Oh, there's your camera.
Yeah.
you are. Hello.
All right. If you're just joining us and you missed my whole thing at the beginning, let me just say this. I know people have feelings. I accept that and I acknowledge that. Your feelings are yours and they are valid. I'm not here to diminish any of them. However, that being said, please, for the love of Pete, let's keep the comments in the chat specifically directed to the things that are coming out of the various people's mouths. I don't want any creators bashed. I don't. Please don't do that. Okay? Let's just try to get through this. Okay? If anybody's going to talk any shit, it should be me. Don't y'all do it. All right, here we go.
Hello, Miss Jen. How are you?
Oh, just living the dream, running back and forth to Nashville. I'm so glad that we are, I'm glad that we're at this point. We haven't found Sebastian. This is good stuff. It has to be done.
It's sad that it needs to be. I think this is kind of a great pivot into like Sebastian's army. But I think first, I think people need to understand what brought you to this point. I mean, a lot of people that are criticizing these measures right now first of all, don't have a child missing. Secondly, they didn't have a child missing and was able to walk into what should have been deemed from not whether or not it was truly a crime scene. It just matters that when you have a missing child, there is a standard and a protocol that you should be going through each and every time. And the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children specifically put out a directive that says turn these places into crime scenes because you really don't know what truly happened to the child. And until you find the child.
All right, let's fact check that. All right. National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Let's look. Let's just do it this way. Let me keep playing while we fact check. I don't want you guys sitting here listening to me tickety-tacketing on the keyboard.
Child, you need to preserve evidence.
So this is
It's
the
about scene
standard.
preservation more than it being a crime scene.
Thank
It's about
you. Yes.
preserving the last location that the child was in,
Yeah.
supposedly.
Right. And if nothing more, they usually need to keep the family out until the child is found or they know what is going on. And at this point, you know, when I interviewed you, what, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, almost.
Feels like it could have been yesterday.
It does. It does.
Yeah.
You said that you walked right into that house, and the thing that just flashed before my eyes, because it's a polarizing case, is John Benet Ramsey. And these are, you know, there was a lot of law enforcement policies and procedures across this country that changed as a direct result of the John Benet Ramsey case.
Okay, that fact check that with the John Benet Ramsey case. I looked that up to fact check it. Other places didn't change their policies and procedures. However, they were highly critical of Colorado. Colorado itself did change policy and procedure because of the John Benet Ramsey case. But it didn't, the John Benet Ramsey case, I fact checked that, and it did not impact or affect the way that other departments in other states and in other cities hand their protocol and procedure. If anything, other states were very critical because it just seemed such a basic thing. It did, however, change some things in okay. Let me say this. This is the directive. I looked it up. Here it is. She's not 100% right, but she's not 100% wrong either. She's somewhere in the middle. It's actually, this is the question I asked. Does NCMEC have a directive for law enforcement to treat a home the child has gone missing from as a crime scene? Here is what AI says. All right. Yes, NCMEC instructs first responders to secure the missing child's home and treat areas of interest as potential crime scenes. While NCMEC does not have statutory authority to issue mandatory legal directives to police departments, its official training standards and toolkits serve as the baseline operational protocol for law enforcement agencies across the United States. According to the NCMEC investigative checklist for first responders, law enforcement personnel are advised to take the following immediate containment steps. 1, seal and protect the home. Officers must immediately secure the home and the child's bedroom. This prevents family members, neighbors, or volunteers from inadvertently destroying physical evidence or scents needed for tracking dogs. Treat areas as potential crime scenes. Responders are instructed to officially treat all locations where the child was last seen or expected to be as a potential crime scene. This holds true even if initial reports suggest the child ran away voluntarily. Preserve personal DNA and biometrics, which they did. The protocol dictates preserving the child's personal items such as hairbrushes, diaries, articles containing fingerprints, footprints, or teeth impressions to aid in identification and forensic testing. Document the environment. Responders must evaluate the physical contents and visual appearance of the child's room and take photos or videos of the areas before they are altered. Now, here is Remy, who says even if NCMEC says that, that doesn't mean that it is the policy and or procedure of the police. This is also true. And so both things can be true at the same time. Also, I'd like to keep in mind, we weren't there in that home. Now, I also Googled the timeline to refresh my recollection. And obviously, when you Google on Google, and they give you a timeline, they give you the links to the timeline where this came from. And so I went and I looked at the articles, and the way that the timeline is presented on Google is accurate based on those links. So at 6:30 is when Sebastian was reported missing. Okay. And the first responders, they got there pretty damn quick. Seth, according to his timeline, got out of work at 7:00, checked his phone, saw the text message, called, then headed over. And so there was time in between first responders and a detective who Seth also says was there when he got there. There was time between when Sebastian was reported missing, first responders show up, and when Seth got there. In all that time, we don't know what they did, and neither does Seth. Is it possible that they documented and preserved and collected things, and that by the time Seth arrived, that was all done? Yeah, it is possible, and that should be entertained. Simultaneously, it is also possible that it wasn't. Both things, we don't know.
And to think that this was such a lackadaisy, unprofessional search and situation at the beginning that should have been cut off. Nobody should have been allowed in that house until the child was found. That's typically standard op, in my opinion.
Hey guys, hey Betty, I think you're absolutely spot on. More and more
Hey, Lady
children
Freedom.
are being reported missing. Hey Jen, hey guys, they're reported missing, but they're really not missing. Something else happened, right? Like the Javea Harris case, very newest one that I covered. So
Right.
yeah.
My car was searched because of that case, which again, another missed opportunity for this. Think about how many cases I've been boots on the ground at a missing child's case, and I've never had my vehicle searched. They don't know me from Adam. They don't know whether I'm coming in and going out, I mean, and this was the first time that my car was actually searched for a missing child. I felt like I wasn't offended at all. The only thing I was offended about is like, why isn't the standard operating procedure for a missing child?
Kim says, wasn't the TBI there immediately? The FBI and card came after the 27th. I think that the TBI was there quickly, but I think the issue that Betty and the people on the panel are taking is that the house was not immediately sealed off by anybody, and that that's what should have happened. So the first officer on scene should have, in their opinion, sealed off the home and ushered everyone out of the home, and then proceeded to document the scene. That's what they wanted. And that's what they're saying didn't happen. But to be fair, we don't know what law enforcement did from the time they got there until Seth arrived. We only know what Seth is reporting, and that's after he arrived. So we don't know. And Seth also says that when he got there, at some point that law enforcement and him went back to his house in Clarksville, and they were documenting and photographing, talking to Seth, and checking everything out. So Kim says, didn't he also say that Sebastian's room was a mess because they tore it apart? It's a little like fuzzy, because I know that he definitely said that about Sebastian's room at his house, but I don't remember. And this is part of, Allie and I intend to do something together where we go back and watch some things and get it together for you guys not in a bendy buffering way like I'm doing right now, but a more cohesive way, because these are questions that you guys have I can't like remember every single detail all the time anyway. So I do know that he said that when he was referring to his house. I don't know if he ever said that about Katie and Chris's house.
Yeah, they were searching like they're doing like checkpoints, right?
They had one. Yeah. I mean, to be honest with you, there was two different ones. There was one right there going in, and I introduced myself to the officer and said, where's this, staging ground for media? And so I had to go through him. And then
Betty, let me just say this. I mean, I appreciate your talking about like your experience or whatever, but it doesn't pertain to this situation. So,
oh my God, who the hell cares?
Remy said Seth was wearing his deputy uniform from his own words, and if he identified himself as the father, they probably let him through. He's going to talk about that in more specifics. So here we go.
And I went up there and I engaged with two other officers, and they're like, we understand here's where you stage at, but we still have a missing 4-year-old. Do you mind if we search your vehicle? And I'm like, yeah, my vehicle's full of, equipment, but have at it,
Oh my God. Also, Remy, at the ward, we don't talk about rats' asses over here. We talk about nobody giving rats fat kneecaps. Come on, Remy. It's like you're brand new. Don't you know? Come on.
have at it.
Yes.
So-
Wow. That's amazing. But but they shut it down because they were thinking she was abducted, right? I think they wanted to make sure anybody in and out was not involved.
I don't know. You know what, to be honest with you, it was, I know that she wasn't just a normal missing child.
Oh my God.
When that happened, because that was a little different.
So have we all looked at the lawsuit?
Well, that's what we were getting into when you guys were getting in there. I wanted to
go ahead, Betty.
Yeah, because I haven't had a chance to look at the whole thing. I'm gonna go over it later, is what I told everybody yesterday on my panel. And yeah.
I listened to it, by the way. I'll say that I didn't read it myself, but I did listen.
I'd like to talk about Title IV. Title IV.
Okay.
I don't even know which paragraph.
Title IV is going to be.
Before we get into that, can I?
Okay, so at some point, I do ask the question about when the actual Title IV candidacy was issued, and they address it from the panel and say it's a good question, and then Chasing, bless her sweetheart, I know she's probably like, Jen Lou, get yourself together. It's in the filing. But she was super sweet and she said, it's in the filing. So then I went and was like, is it in the filing? Let me go look. So then I went and looked, and that's how I found out. That's when I realized, yes, he qualified for Title IV-E candidacy, which is basically removal from the home. And in September of 2022, but according to the May 2023 report, he no longer qualified, which actually made me have even more questions. So knowing the date, I thought, okay, if I know the date, this is going to resolve some things for me. It did not. And that's the part that's stuck in my crawl, this whole Title IV thing, because the filing relies so heavily on it as an admission, essentially, from DCS that Sebastian didn't belong in that home and should have been removed. And that's why it's stuck in my crawl.
Can I ask Seth? He may not want to do that, but so this is coming out in the lawsuit, what your lawyers has put out. There's more in there that's redacted and stuff like that, right? That may come out or may not come out, right?
Correct.
Okay. So just to clear this up, because I've heard this around the internet. So can we put it like we've had in a private conversation, which I didn't ask you, but you said it yourself. But so I just want to clear this up for everybody watching. It might be helpful. So you said this was one of the reasons that the CMDs, and you can stop me if I'm wrong, but you said this was one of the reasons that the CMDs come out, because we all know that the papers got took from you. Okay, we don't have to name names and stuff like that. And
right.
some
You're talking about the Department of Children.
Yeah. I just want to say, I'd like to clear this up real quick.
were to put a space between me and that individual, so that when DCS, if they hit the public, and it's not going to be by me, if they hit the public, it would know that when they sat there and came back and traced it to whoever, well, on file, I have a cease and desist, meaning not only are they not supposed to be sharing any information that they have received, that I am not sharing and giving them permission to share anything that they have taken from me.
Yeah, because you didn't want, because they could arrest you for that, right? So I just wanted to clear that up about.
Okay. I appreciate that Smiley asked this question. Yes, it did take her a little bit to get there. This is my compliment sandwich. So I wish that it would have been more succinct. Problem is, I sometimes do this. I buffer a lot. And so I don't want to be judgy of her, but I am glad overall. I think that clarifying the cease and desists was helpful. But if I recall correctly, some of the people who received cease and desists had nothing to do with that and would not have been or were not, at least publicly, a actual recipient or potential recipient. So I don't think that was the only reason that those cease and desists went out. B. Frank said, hi, B. Frank, by the way, I don't think in the long run this suit will prevail. I think that the one case that has a shot at making it past the dismissal is the DCS case. Is it a strong shot? No. I think that if it had been done at the state level rather than at the federal level, has been pointed out, I think Remy said it at least 72 times. Just kidding. I don't know. I know Remy has said it. I think that it would have had a better chance. I think one of the things that's going to keep this case, this DCS lawsuit, even at whether it be at the federal or the state level, from being successful is, and this is just my opinion, I'm not an attorney, okay? I don't pretend to be an attorney. I just have watched a lot of stuff. And so based on that, this is what my assessment is. If you are ever in need of legal advice, let's say you get a cease and desist in the mail. Let's say you get a jury summons. Let's say you get a traffic ticket. You find yourself in an interview room with the popo. Don't call me. I'm not an attorney. Call an actual attorney. All right, that's my disclosure. Anyway, I think that the problem as I see it really is because this case is still open and ongoing. There is no resolution. There is no no determination as to what actually happened. So unlike with, for example, Harmony Montgomery, where unfortunately Harmony was brutally murdered by her father. And there were reports and failures made by CPS in that case. Because of that, I think, and there isn't in this case where, like, I don't know. I just don't think I have reservations. This one has a tiny little chance. All right, let's keep going.
I'm sorry. I know y'all are going into
Hold on.
something else, but it would take a
It's
long
fine.
time. So I just thought
DCS
it might be-
contacted that attorney because that attorney was a family attorney, a family law
right.
attorney, and she's the one that helped me get the DCS records. And she did that to cover her client.
Right.
You
I
know?
just wanted to clear that part up. I'm sorry, Betty. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No.
I just thought maybe that would help clear up the CNDs and some things because some things look bad.
Okay, I think now all the synapses are firing and I'm remembering things. Please correct me if I'm wrong in the chat, but weren't there 2 rounds of CNDs? Wasn't there a round of CNDs that went out? And if I correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't, and then there was another round of CNDs that went out after some time. Okay, thank you, B. Frank. Thank you. Because sometimes I'm not going to lie to you guys. Sometimes I think I like deep down know the answer, but I will gaslight my own self before and second and be like, am I right? Did I even hear that? Did I make that up in my brain? Okay. Tip. Where's Tip? Tip said Seth shared the records with the green team. Okay, so here's the deal with that. By all accounts, publicly. Now, of course, I am not privy to conversations behind the scenes, either in direct messages, private messages, Facebook Messenger groups, text messages, emails, phone calls, and none of that. Okay? By all accounts, publicly. I know Betty says she's never seen the CPS reports. And I remember Tony distinctly saying, I've never seen the CPS reports. Now, what's critical to remember here is the admonition given to Seth about the CPS reports. And the way that I understood it was that he could not share the CPS reports. And I would believe that would be like interpreted as he could not make copies and hand over those physical reports. Is he allowed to discuss what's in those reports? I'd have to see this is the specific admonishment given to Seth by DCS. I'd have to see. There is a difference in being given the CPS reports to look at and being told what's in those CPS reports. I would wonder if one of them was a no-no and one of them is on the line. You know what I'm saying? But publicly they've all said they've never seen it.
That on Seth, and I hear things, and I'm just like,
well,
we've
cleared that up many times. Everybody knew those C&Ds were direct related because somebody took stuff off of his phone that he was under strict confidence not to share, even as a father. You could not share these documents. It's unlawful.
Betty has been with me from the get-go. Well, not the get-go, but a couple months in, and she has never seen the DCS reports.
Never.
Right.
I've been to Jen's house and have, had dinners, card nights, things like that, and she has never seen the DCS reports.
Right. That's right.
Right. And I hope that clears that up for people because I'm still hearing that to this day. And so I thought about it. I thought, well, while we're on here and we can clear some stuff, maybe all heads put together, we can clear up some stuff. Okay.
Right.
The thing is, with certain channels, it won't matter because they hear what they want to hear, and then
because they're wrong. They've been wrong, and they just can't. They double down on on every blessed thing. At some point, you're just going to have to throw the towel in and say, "Look, I was wrong."
Right.
Yeah.
It takes a real big person in here to actually admit that they're wrong. And face it, sometimes these people are just they never graduated high school mentally.
Yeah, but you know what? But
Yeah,
all of
we're
us
all
face
wrong at
all
times.
of us face plant on a freaking a story.
Well, the lack of
Tip says, I would go back and watch his old videos if you want to get facts. Here's the thing. I have followed this case and watched and been in like listened to those lives, watch those lives, you know, all of the things. Okay. And Alex Erickson and I plan to do just that and then present it to you guys. But for these purposes, you know, we're not gonna I can't you know, I'm gonna wait. If I okay, and here's why. And hear me out on this, because I know me and I know my own brain. Okay. If I start to go back and watch those videos, it will definitely 1,011 billion% influence my response in these. And the purpose of this is I just want to talk about it with you guys, what he says, right? Now, not what he said then, but now. And then I would like to go back and really specifically discuss more in depth things that he has said, things that they have all said in the past pertaining to the things in the DCS lawsuit and the Sumner County Sheriff's Office, because I don't want to. I feel like I know how my brain works, and I think that it will work best that way. Be frank, you didn't have to do that. Thank you. That was really sweet of you. Love ya. Behave. I mean, I always behave. What you mean? I'm always on my best behavior. Hey, Texas Plain Jane. Good to see you. Thank you guys for being here. I really appreciate it. Very, 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 very much. I really do. All right, let's keep going.
transparency has caused us to have a lot of speculation. It's human nature to fill those blanks in. We're just going to want, when we're searching for answers, we're trying to figure it out, and then the information we have is incorrect or incomplete. So, you know, there's a lot to that. And
I would like to say this right now. Nothing could be more true. Lady Freedom nailed it. It is human nature to want to fill in the blanks. I will disagree on the transparency part. Only because when an investigation is open and ongoing, the law enforcement and everything affiliated with that, including the prosecutor's office, right? They're conducting an investigation. Not only do they want to find out what happened, but they want to hold the person or persons criminally responsible for what happened. Okay. And the ultimate goal is in a case is to first find out what happened, then who's responsible, and then prosecute the person or persons responsible. So that is the flow of things. And at every level of those things, protecting the investigation is of the utmost importance. And then as it moves through, down to the through the steps to ultimately prosecuting, the goal of a prosecutor is to get it, not just to, first of all, to make sure that they have the right person on trial for the right charges, right? But not only that, once they have ascertained that, then they want to secure a conviction, and not just to secure a conviction, but to secure a conviction that will stand up against any and all appeals. That's the goal. And unfortunately, that means that there are certain things that they cannot come out and discuss with the public. There are going to be questions surrounding an investigation that we don't get the answers to until there is a trial. And I think that that's really important to keep in mind. Yes, we all want the answers, but the truth is we're not actually entitled to those answers. And as frustrating as it is, and I know it's hard because I'm struggling right now. I love House of the Dragon, but I'm having a huge issue waiting a week between episodes. That's 7 days. That's it. Okay. I can't even begin to even wrap my brain around being a parent of a missing child and not having answers. I feel like my brain would explode if waiting a week to find out what happens is an issue for me, which is why frequently I don't even start. I just wait until the whole season is out so that I can stream it all in one fell swoop because I can't wait. I know me, but I also understand too. I understand the frustration and the wanting things to, but what I cannot and I will not get behind is criticism for law enforcement that goes into the lines of they're purposefully and intentionally covering shit up. There's a conspiracy. Does corruption exist? Yes. Do conspiracies exist? Yes. But are they in every single fucking case? No. That's the point. Sorry for my tangent. This is why I cannot get onto Smiley for the way, it taking so long to ask the question. I know how I roll.
It's been from the very beginning.
And I will state this as well. Whether the sheriff's department clears me or not, my son is my priority. And when I want information on, are you still looking for my son? You better tell me yes or no.
And never mind.
And it got to the point
right.
that, Tony was like, Tony, ask them if they're any further than they were the last time. And when they can't answer that question, my son's missing. I'm going to assume the worst. I pray and I hope every day that the light at the end of the tunnel is my son. Because that's it.
Right.
I want to find my son. I want to bring him home. And I want to protect him because other people didn't. And I have the records that state that he wasn't. And it doesn't matter who it states in there. The fact is that these filings is because 2 agencies failed my son. They failed communication, they failed procedures, and they failed policies.
And sometimes policies need to be changed.
Yeah.
Protocols need to be changed. And, Tennessee doesn't have a good track record at all of finding the missing. So, you got to do something different to get different results. And that's what you're doing, Seth.
I see the problem. I've been living the problem. And before we even got to this filing stuff, I've been working on Sebastian's law.
Right.
I've been working on a law that helps fix the problems and puts oversight on some of these agencies to fix the problem and make our children a priority.
Mm-hmm.
Too many of these organizations, I've seen them fail the children, and they're supposed to be for the children.
Okay. Listen. I did a live with Nonsense, about a month ago, talking about Sebastian's Law, because that was the last live on his channel that Seth did. Okay. And here's the thing. I understand his frustration. However, it is my opinion, and I said this in the chat, and I hope that he saw it and is thinking about it. I understand that Seth feels that agencies and look, DCS, CPS, they're not DCFS. They're not without failing. They're high. Listen, we know we talk about this all the time. Yes, the system is not perfect. It's not even close to perfect. It's not even right. Not even right. It does need an overhaul. I agree with that. That the CPS system has failed our children. It's also helped children, but the failures, when they fail big, and it's unacceptable. Okay. And yes, it definitely needs an overhaul. Okay. And I do think that that should be maintained and be a long-term goal. Okay. There are things that Seth could do in the interim that I think would be um, far more attainable and also helpful in the immediate. One of the issues is the Amber Alert. Now, the Amber Alert, when it came out, it was huge. And right after it came out, it saved a kid in Texas, which is where Amber Hagerman went missing. She went missing. She was kidnapped in Arlington, Texas. And so when it was instituted, it saved a kid. I'm sure it saved a lot of children. But the criteria for Amber Alerts is very high. In fact, in another Texas case, Athena Strand's case, this was another situation where the Amber Alert, because of the circumstances, it wasn't issued immediately. So in the interim, they have now developed and passed Athena's Law. And basically, it is to cover that interim period between when a child goes missing and the Amber Alert. And Tennessee doesn't have that. And I think that would be a much better now goal. I think that it would be something that's absolutely attainable. Hey, Adrian, good to see you. And anybody else that's coming in that I haven't said hi to, hi. You guys know how I get. Sometimes I get on a tangent, and if I start looking at the chat, you know how I'll get distracted, and the thought I have will go directly out of my brain. So sometimes I have to turn my face away. But okay, here we go.
That's right.
And that's besides being upsetting, it leads to the downfall of civilization.
It's bad for everybody, especially the kids.
Right.
But these are some of the things that kind of pushed you over the edge in why you wanted to bring this suit, is because a lot of that communication, like you said, not only you, Tony's asked, I know we've asked publicly here on our channels, many of us, are we any further than we were the day that this was reported? Basic information we don't even have.
What
did he even make it home from the Texas Roadhouse? I mean, that is basic information that you would think that they would have no problem. It doesn't go to the integrity of the investigation. Did he make it home or not? Yes or no?
Right.
And I can't
100%
for that. So, I mean,
and oh my gosh, can you imagine if at this moment they don't even know if he made it home or not? And we're 2.5 years into this case. I'm just, just the things that floor me when it comes to the questions we have, and we have no answers. Any answer that anybody gives you is speculative because it's not coming from the mouths of babes. It's not coming from them.
Right. We've all speculated, and even myself, I'm like, wait a minute, maybe he didn't make it home. Jen, you have two maps. One that he made it home, one that he didn't.
Right. And many of us have been divided. We have great content creators that are looking at this very analytically. And it's like, wait a minute, it's just, we all do it. Wait a minute. We don't even know. We have no factual basis to even say he walked in that door. Who told us that he made it home? Katie.
Right.
She went right in the garage.
Well, to be fair, I mean, there is that video out there that saying Weatherford did say that. And in my opinion, I understand everybody has their own opinions, but in my opinion, to be fair, and Seth knows I feel this way, and it wouldn't really matter. I mean, I do feel he made it home, but that's just my opinion. And my opinion,
I join you, so you're not alone in that. But I do know that there are many people, a trusted, very good content creator. Mama Rissa's in here tonight. I know that her and Hindsight have been working diligently, exploring that avenue, and they're not wrong for doing so.
No, nobody's wrong. Everybody has their right to their opinion and their thoughts and whatever they think. We're not all going to think the same.
But it does need to be explored, because at the end of the day, what person of actual factual status has said that he even made it home? But let's get back to some of this stuff that's in the report before we get too far off
off the reservation.
Off the reservation.
the farm.
Off the reservation. And I think that it's super important because a lot of these things, let's be honest, we've been deceived. Even you have been deceived. If we were to talk about deception here, you were deceived by lack of communication by the Department of Children and Family Services is one thing. And even though we're probably not going to go into that case too much tonight, we found out, which we did not know, that Sumner County Sheriff's Department were involved in both of those investigations. So they were well aware of these two investigations. When your child,
every time that I've seen anything with any child protection agency or Department of Children's Services, if you look at some of the videos, even on YouTube, when they show up, they have law enforcement with them because they're a government agency, but they don't have the authority that law enforcement has. All right. So when I asked them, you guys weren't involved with these DCS records, DCS, and I couldn't get a straight answer. But the first time that I was notified about anything, it was from the security resource officer at his middle school, and they called me on the phone.
So the problem started at high school.
Well, no, the thing is the school resource officer called me. I came in, that gentleman spoke to me like 30 or 45 minutes by myself.
Gotcha. I misunderstood you.
And that's when I told them about what happened in California. And I told them he needs help. He needs the help that I can't give him professionally. I'm trying to help him as much as I can as his dad, but I'm not a therapist. I'm not a psychologist. He needs help. And he didn't start getting the mental health appointments until after that.
So 3 days prior, him going missing, he had a doctor's appointment.
Good point. Yeah.
He had an appointment on Monday.
On Monday?
That was canceled on a Friday.
On Friday.
Which is, again, it comes back to blowing our mind because
I see.
He disappeared. He disappeared on Monday. How did she foresee he would not be able to make it to that appointment on Friday?
I don't really want to talk about her.
Yeah, let's move on. Okay.
So the appointment, was that a mental health appointment?
Yeah, he was having 2 or 3 appointments every week.
Okay.
Not to mention there was at-home visits too. And when he was up here, they did at-home visits here. There were times that his appointment on Friday for me to pick him up, I would be there and Sebastian would stay there for, at the house for 30, 45 minutes to have his appointment with her. And then we would leave their house to come up here.
So I went ahead and just asked one of my AI programs, are there laws in Tennessee that criminalize physical punishment of a disabled person? And it says, yes, Tennessee has several criminal statutes that apply when a disabled person.
Okay. This is the part where I got like this. Hold on a second. Let me find it for you. These were literally the thoughts that came out of my head.
Fuck.
And here's why. I could see the direction that this was going, even after Seth said he did not want to talk about Katie. He said her, we all know who her is. It's Katie. First of all, going way back to the nobody verified that he even made it home that day. Wait a minute, back the milk truck up, because correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't Seth come out early on, and if I'm not mistaken, on Pascal's, and say that he was shown a video footage from a neighbor's camera, and it identified Sebastian. He identified Sebastian as being the person taking the garbage out. Okay. I think, am I, excuse me, hold on a second, you guys, sorry. Sorry about that. Did I misremember that? B. Frank says, yes, he did. Okay. Thank you. Because I was like 99% sure, but I just wanted to check. All right. So there is, I mean, you identified him, Seth. So, okay, there's that one. Then we have this appointment situation. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, or maybe I interpreted this incorrectly, but from the very beginning, didn't Katie come out and say that what she was doing that evening while being on the phone with Chris Proudfoot was studying? Didn't she have a test Monday? Am I remembering that incorrectly? Because to me, it seems like if I am correct, then likely wouldn't she have been told that on a Friday? You're going to have a test on Monday. And so she canceled the appointment just to be on the safe side. Is that not actually, like, does that not make sense? Because that's when I heard this big kerfuffle about canceling this appointment, that was what I thought immediately of. Pitch says, no, he said there was a person caught that skipped like Sebastian, but he always said that he couldn't identify it was him. The way that I'm not arguing with you, Titch, but the way that I remember the sequence of events was initially he said yes, and then later on he said no, which, to be perfectly fair, as far as law enforcement goes, are they going to pay attention to that? Yes, but they're also going to pay attention to what he said first, because there was a series of, let's just say, unfortunate events that happened between him being shown that video and then what he said online. And so maybe law enforcement is leaning towards what he said initially before the series of unfortunate events happened. Does that make sense? Titch says that she's never said she was going to have a test. She just said she was studying on Nancy Grace's. No mention of a test. I will go back and let me, while I'm thinking about it right here and right now, let me make a note of this to find out exactly what Katie has said with respect to studying, because I'm just telling you what my initial impressions were. Is it possible that the reason that she canceled the appointment is because she had a test? All right, so let me write this down. So I don't forget. So what I'll do is go back and get every clip that I possibly can, keeping in mind that there are some of those streams no longer exist, but I'll do my level best to find them. And we'll go back and listen to everything that she's ever said about that night. Fair? Okay, here we go.
Is physically punished or abused, plus the general assault law that protects everyone. Here's how the framework fits together. The most directly relevant law in Tennessee is Code Section 3915-510, which makes it an offense to knowingly abuse an elderly or vulnerable adult For this statute, abuse means the infliction of physical harm in a vulnerable adult or person. That's not to a child. Hold on. Let me rephrase that. Let's see. What about child? They're talking about adults. Hold on. And I will read that, but I want to see about the child. What about a child?
And I'm under the understanding that this is, so basically your attorney has went over Tennessee, and this is everything that he is doing is federal.
Correct.
So like the Title IV, I'm thinking that is the Family First, where the Family First Act, Preservation Act, the Title IV.
Title IV is Title IV is when the individual that is at extreme risk is put up for non-custodial care or foster care.
Oh, you're
Yeah,
talking about with the
Right.
statement that he was in grave or in imminent danger of being removed. Are you talking
Right.
about that?
Yes.
Mhm.
Oh,
That's a
okay. I
statute
didn't know
would
that
have
was
had
what
that
it was.
happen. Mhm.
Okay, here is what it says. It says, for disabled children, the governing law in Tennessee is Child Abuse Statute 3915-401. Rather than a vulnerable adult statute I described earlier, it protects any child under 18, and disability affects the particular picture more than it changes the statutory text. The core offense, knowingly, other than by accidental means, treating a child under the age of 18 so as it inflicts injury, is child abuse. The penalty turns primarily on the child's age. If the child is older than 8, it's a Class A misdemeanor. If the child is 8 or younger, it's a Class D felony. There's a parallel provision for abuse or neglect that adversely affects the child's health, and welfare, which is a Class A misdemeanor generally, but a Class E felony if the child is 8 or under. The offense escalates to aggravated child abuse under Section 3915-402 when the child abuse results in serious bodily injury to that child, a deadly weapon or a dangerous instrument is used, or an act was especially heinous or anything. I don't think that is. I just wanted to see if him admitting that he gut punched or swatted in the gut a disabled child, if that would rise to the level for child abuse, for a child abuse charge. And it sounds like it is a misdemeanor. So
Okay. What she is referencing there, we've all discussed. Me chasing Melissa Jade Alley. We just had a live, Thursday night, I think it was. It's up on the channel. About that second case referenced in the filing, which was in May of 2023. And this is what I'll say about that. Okay. I am always cautious before making an accusation. And in this case, the accusation really would be against DCS, because that's what we're talking about, right? Whether or not what Chris Proudfoot admitted to, which he did admit in that filing, is child abuse. There's child abuse by the legal definition, and then there's child abuse, which is subjective based on parenting choices. And this is what I'll say about that. I'm not a fan of a parenting choice that involves a step parent being allowed physical discipline. I think the decision on whether or not you spank a child is a parenting choice. And I'm not going to argue about that because I don't think it would be a fruitful or productive conversation to have. There are too many. It's a very polarizing situation, and it doesn't really matter what my parenting choice is, because I wasn't in that home. So my parenting choice doesn't count. I don't think it's a good idea. I think that it is problematic. I think that it's not something that I would do. So there's that part of it. Now there's the element of legality. Hey, ATS, good to see you, babe. of it. There is too much unknown information. There are snippets of quotes taken from that actual report. But in order for me to say, which is the core question here, did DCS fail him? And I do think that it is worth examining. Did DCS fail Sebastian? The problem and the issue I have in this moment is not enough information for the legality part of it. I've already stated that I don't think it's a good idea that a step parent has permission to physically punish a child, period. I don't think that's a good idea. I think that that is a setup for a disaster, potentially. Does it happen every time? No. But in my opinion, it's happened enough that if it were me, it wouldn't be a parenting choice I would make. No. My circumstances are very different. I do have, my oldest son is not biologically my husband's. My husband and I were together from I was pregnant and didn't know it when I met him. And so we went through my pregnancy. And keep in mind, I was 18 years old, okay? So obviously, clearly there was a little overlap, all right? But at 18, aren't you allowed to be a little hoish? So anyway, that happened. And I went through my entire pregnancy and all of it. And I didn't know whether his biological father, I told his biological father, but I had no idea whether his biological father would choose to be in his life, if it would be a consistent thing, if he'd be in and then say, you know what, it's too much, I'm out. So my oldest son was raised the same way, but he was raised as if he were my husband's biological child. That's very different circumstances than if it were, say, years in between me having my son and then meeting my husband. So I don't think hitting children is appropriate. I don't think it works. I don't think it's effective. I think it's a very antiquated way of thinking. I was raised in a time, which was the 80s, when parents spanked their children. I think that as we learn more, therefore we should, when you know better, you do better. And I think in this day and age, we've learned that it really is not an effective means of raising a child. I think that we've learned that it doesn't deter bad behavior, actually. It really doesn't. So it's not something that I would do. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the legality of it. And legally, corporal punishment is legal for our purposes of having this conversation. And that's what they're talking about. Should he have been charged? And what I'm trying to get to, that I've hemmed and hawed and buffered around, is, for me, in my opinion, there is not enough information in this filing that we have access to make that determination. The court obviously will have the information that we don't have. They will have those CPS reports, etc. So there'll be a different, they'll be able to make a determination. Remy said, but that's why I want to caution people before they make accusations and things like that. to keep in mind what we're actually what we're reading, but also what we're not reading, what's not in there. And I'm not saying that it's not in there because it didn't happen. It's just that I don't feel comfortable making some type of legal determination when I don't have all the facts. I don't have the circumstances. Tennessee, Remy said, Tennessee says it's allowed up until and no further than redness. Of course, legally and morally are two different things. Absolutely.
In reality, it sounds like them failing to charge Chris after admitting abuse of your son would be negligent too. I mean, there is, that's all I was looking at. I was just trying to answer my own question without asking you too much about it. But what do you believe has been done, if anything, that you can share?
I've had tips and stuff come in, and my personal experience with the tips that have come in, there's a reason why I go to these places.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason why I speak to the police department or the sheriff's department or both, and wherever these tips are, and I hand them flyers that are from the FBI. And then I speak to them. And Miley, you sent me a tip.
Yeah.
And when you sent me that tip, at that point in time, I was still in communication with Sumner County.
Yes, absolutely.
So I sent that to them, and I waited 2 days and drove up there.
Yeah.
And I
No,
spoke to
you didn't wait 2 days. You went, but you were waiting on them.
I waited 2 days for them, for Sumner County. But I drove up there and saw that the building was closed, contacted the sheriff's department. They came and met me. Like literally, I got out and they were like, "Are you armed?" And I was like, "Yes." And they're like, "Okay, before we speak, do you mind if we pat you down?" And I'm like, "Whatever means to make you feel comfortable, that is fine, because I need your help."
It's crazy.
Right.
Well, it's a crazy world since there are certain things that are going on. Law enforcement cannot expect anybody that walks up to them to be friendly with good purpose.
But and that sheriff was on the phone with me, a three-way, or not a three-way, but standing there with Seth. It was wild. But what happened and led to the tip, that was real, wasn't it, Seth? That was wild.
It was. I mean, that's when I found out that the person was making a trip to Mexico.
And I think that's where a lot of the Mexico stuff started coming in.
The sheriff's department had no idea who Sebastian was. And this was still in Tennessee. And they had no idea who Sebastian was. I literally put them in. I gave them the number for Sumner County. I gave them the number for Brandon. I gave them the number for my TBI contact. And I gave them the number for the FBI contact. And when I called and followed up a week later with them, they still hadn't heard anything from Sumner County or TBI. And the only person that they had heard from was the FBI.
To this day, I still tell Seth, please, I would go there and still look around. That's how serious this tip was.
Okay. This is what I'll say about this. Okay. I have no idea the legitimacy or illegitimacy of this tip. Let me tell you where the issue is for me personally. Okay. And the issue here is that, let's say this tip was absolutely legitimate and it resulted in Sebastian being found. Okay. That's step one of the goal of an investigation. How did Sebastian get there? Who caused him to be there? All those things, right? And then bringing that person or persons to justice this is not a sprint. This is a marathon, right? From law enforcement side. Now, if that tip had come in and Smiley is advising Seth to continue to go and look around that area, let's say that when he did do that, he found Sebastian. Then what? What would he be in a position to do other than call the authorities? Because to hold those people responsible, as we all know, from following true crime, there's chain of custody. There's a lot of legal rigmarole that goes into prosecuting. And that starts at the investigation stage where their Miranda rights read, what happened, all those circumstances. Wait a minute. What's going on in the chat? Hold on a minute. Let me look up and see what's happening, because no, this channel does not allow the blaming of a victim for their own. Let me read what the problem is. All right. So I guess it's going on between Kim and Titch. Kim says, Titch, I disagree. I think teenager boys and girls are more likely to embellish as they get older because they don't want to take responsibility. And I'm not saying Sebastian had any responsibility here. So where's the victim blaming? Come on. Can we not have a discussion? Please.
And Smiley, you know, excuse me, I'm sorry, guys. Smiley, I know that that is Chris Proudfoot. Also, I will just say he confessed to you on your show that he struck Sebastian with a belt. You know, I don't know how hard the strike was, but it's just another admission, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, the law enforcement has that whole video, and I will say they did come back and take 3 pieces out of it, but or timestamps or whatever, but they have that whole thing. So whatever they did with it or doing with it or whatever.
I've had other tips that have been in Kentucky and quite literally communicated with the police department and sheriff's department up there. They said that they had that the person that they saw looked like Sebastian, and he was living in a tent on property on this person's farmland, like right off the road. And the information that they gave me sounded like Sebastian.
All right. Obviously, look, I don't think that Kim was victim blaming. She literally wrote, not that Sebastian is responsible for anything. Okay. If we're going, we have to be able to have a discussion about these things without it getting like this. Especially, like, I get that you guys are having a discussion, but then to say, oh, this channel allows victim blaming. Come on, man. Really? What I allow is differing opinions. Okay. And at the end of the day, what we're talking about here is a morally versus legally. Okay. Do I morally agree with hitting a child? No. Legally, in Tennessee, which is where we're talking about this taking place, it's not against the law. I would like us to be able to have these discussions because I think they're important. And if we're gonna be critical, and believe me, DCS, DCFS, CPS, whatever you want to, whatever they're called, wherever they're at, they're very deficient, and they have failed children, and they do need to be looked at. But let's just move on, okay? Let's move on from this. There's too much information we don't know that is missing that we may or may not find out as this goes on. If this doesn't pass the dismissal phase, we're not going to find out about it. Okay, we probably won't get these questions answered until there's a resolution to Sebastian and him being found. Okay. Come on, y'all. Let's be nice. Jesus fuck.
You know, they told me that what they saw around the tent, and I was like, well, you know, I know my son. I know he likes that type of canned food because I bought it for him before. You know, and I turned around and I gave all this information to Sumner County, and they would not even go up there and retrieve anything to do DNA or whatnot out of the tent that was still there and the cans that were there. And I'm like, there's cans, there's disposable utensils, and a tent. You should be able to get DNA out of any of this stuff. And you've already taken DNA, stuff with DNA on it that has Sebastian, so there's no reason why, you know, and they never did.
So
I had to have my PI go do it because I know that if I go up there and get evidence, then it's considered tampered with. It's fruit of the forbidden tree. And, you know, when I go to places, I speak to law enforcement. It's the first thing I do. I call law enforcement whenever I enter into the county, so that way they know I'm there and they know why I'm there. And then I ask to meet them at wherever location I'm going.
That seems incomplete, in my opinion. Incomplete.
And this is what I've been facing. No telling what Sebastian's going through.
Do you think that, well, I shouldn't be asking you those questions. Never mind.
Yeah. Don't ask my opinion. Tony's looking at me.
I already felt him in the back of him, smack me in the back of my head.
he done whistled in my ear. Hey, so
I'm trying to, you know, kind of wrap my head. How much did you actually know before you received the reports from the Department of Children and Family Services? I mean, because there's stuff about, you know, Christopher whacking him and
I knew none of this. When I state that I knew about the first one, I know about the first one because I spoke to the resource officer.
yeah,
I
that's
never spoke to DCS.
Oh,
Okay, now he's clarifying it. Okay, and this is what we were trying to get to earlier today. When he's talking about the first incident, what I am inferring from this is that he knew that Sebastian had said something because he got a call from the resource officer, and he spoke to the resource officer but did not speak to DCS.
so even the first time they never contacted you.
No, the only reason I know about everything in the
Okay.
first one was
Yeah.
because the school's resource officer contacted me. Deputy Rogers with Sumner County contacted me, and I thought it sticks in my head because that's my last name. So when I walked in, it was, you know, hello, Deputy Rogers. I'm Deputy Rogers. Nice to meet you. You know, and it was there. And I spoke to him for 30, 45 minutes, and Chris and Katie both were called in by the school and the resource officer.
Well,
Thank you for clarifying, because that was a big, great question, Betty, because that was a big
DCS
one.
never contacted me. So everything in those reports I knew nothing about until my attorney was able to get them, and they're redacted.
but the stuff that you did read.
Wait a minute. Give me. Should we listen to that part again? Let's listen to that part again. Hold on a minute. Back the milk truck up. All right, there you go. Let's see from here.
Christopher whacking him and
I knew none of this. When I state that I knew about the first one, I know about the first one because I spoke to the resource officer.
yeah,
I
that's what you
never
were
spoke to
earlier.
DCS.
Oh, so even the first time they never contacted you.
No, the only reason I know about everything in the
Okay.
first one was
Yeah.
because the school's resource officer contacted me. Deputy Rogers with Sumner County contacted me, and I thought it sticks in my head because that's my last name. So when I walked in, it was, you know, hello, Deputy Rogers. I'm Deputy Rogers. Nice to meet you. You know, and it was there. And I spoke to him for 30, 45 minutes, and Chris and Katie both were called in by the school and the resource officer.
Well,
Thank you for clarifying, because that was a big, great
Yeah.
question, Betty, because that was a big
DCS
one.
never contacted me. So everything in those reports I knew nothing about until my attorney was able to get them, and they're redacted.
They're redacted. Which is actually, okay, so we got one portion clarified, right? Which is what he's saying is he knew that they were going to, I guess he knew about the first incident of interaction of DCS with Sebastian because the school resource officer called all of them in. And they had a meeting. And maybe they were told then, all three of them, that DCS would be contacted. However, and they were. And we know they went out in October. This happened on September 28th that the call went out to the hotline. And then they were seen face to face in October, but he was not contacted by DCS respective to that case. But then he's brought a lawsuit against DCS based on redacted CPS or DCS reports. No, Sam, I think, hey, babe, by the way. No, Sam said, did he see them before redacted? No, I think what I don't know because I wasn't in his eyes, but it sounds like what he's saying is when he had no idea about any DCS involvement because they never contacted him. Then he requested from DCS those reports, and when he received them, they were redacted. So I don't understand how he expects to hold DCS responsible based on redacted reports. Unless obviously, if the DCS is going to defend this, right? Past dismissal, right? So let's say it moves past that. All these talks are keeping in mind that it moves past dismissal, the dismissal phase. So I'm assuming, based on what he's just said, that he thinks, obviously, in order to defend this, DCS is going to have to present those unredacted reports. But what wasn't redacted was enough information. This is maybe to find out what was redacted. I don't know. I just remember back when Leilani Simon was going through her pretrial motions, and one of the hearings had to do with CPS's involvement in her case, and the defense, Leilani's lawyer, wanted those reports, and CPS said no. And guess what? I don't think she got them. Not in full. This is very confusing.
But the stuff that you did read was heartbreaking. And you couldn't even talk about it, and you still haven't been able to talk about it. I mean, this is really as much as I think that the most that has come out, and I think this is. I'm sure your attorney was scant because of the sensitivity of this case, and what the little bit is put in here is fairly shocking. I mean,
yeah, that's why I told you I could talk about what's that's in the filing itself because it's now public record.
Right.
But anything else I can't talk about because
It's not here. And yeah.
and I'm not allowed to because yeah.
So so my understanding is when Eric Craddock told the public, I mean, based upon this, and it's kind of in here, but maybe you can clarify just a little bit more. When he told the public that they're now switching gears and going from the ground search to more of the investigative side of things, I think was almost verbatim the words he used, the investigative side, that's when they basically just turned off the spigot. Like nothing more was really done from that point forward. I mean, we had, what was his name? Widener guy,
Ken
Widener out there saying in his, 30 years or 40 years of doing this, he's never had a case where the dogs didn't pick up a scent. And, we're hearing those things. And then we're finding out that the case is just, they didn't get anything. So it's just like, okay, well, what do we do now? I guess we go to a.
All right. I just want to say something because I think this bears saying, okay. Dogs are not magic, and I love dogs, but scent dogs, okay, are only as good as their handler. All right. And what I have learned, Jane, the dog handler from the Watts case, we are all looking at you. Remember when her dog kept trying to like pull her, and she was just, remember that? We weren't there. We don't know what happened. So I know that people, professional people, right? People who work in some or have worked in some professional capacity, whether they be former law enforcement, FBI, lawyers, etc., have commented on this case. And I feel like they most of the time, I shouldn't say always, but frequently and often when they give opinions, they'll say, yes, this is what typically happens, or this is typical in these situations, or atypical, whatever, right? But they also do the caveat of, I don't have, I'm not part of the investigation. I don't know what this specific law enforcement department has or doesn't have. And I feel like that's what's going on here. There has been a lot of questions surrounding the scent dogs. I'm just going to hold on. Let me skip forward a little bit. I just feel like I think I'm just going to stop here because I feel like after this, because I listened for quite a while, I don't remember longer than this. I think I listened until Betty got off the panel. So probably about maybe right here or so. Where did she get off the panel? Maybe I listened to the whole thing and just have blocked it completely out of my brain. I don't know. I guess I must have. But I feel like after this, it kind of devolves into stuff, discussion that quite honestly, I don't think, you guys can go listen to it and make your own determinations. I think I accomplished what I wanted to here, which is I think we found out more information really from hold on. There is one more thing I want to talk about really quick before I forget. There is another part of this I want to talk about, a clip I want to play, but I think we're pretty good here. I don't think we need to go on much longer. Hold on. Oh, shit. I don't know what I just did. Hold on. There's a part of this. There's something that he talks about in here that I want to look up. And he talks about all right, hold on. This is where it's at. Hold on. It's almost coming up. So it's when he talks about, hold on. All right, here it is. This is where I want to be at. Let me close this. Because he's going to talk a little bit about his impressions of the initial investigation. And I just think we should hear this part, and then that's good.
I'll tell you right now that I know I upset them at the very beginning. When they were like, we want everybody to stay here. Well, I don't want to be at my ex's house. Okay. I don't want to be there. Jen, you know me.
Right.
I'd rather be in my truck than even in my house.
Yeah.
All right. Because if in my truck, I'm on the move. I'm going.
You would rather eat sawdust.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Well, but they should have treated the house like a crime scene. They shouldn't have everybody up at the house contaminating the last.
I think that they should have preserved it. Maybe not as a crime scene, but preserved.
They should have preserved it.
Yeah.
Even if he was a runaway till they figured out what was going on. Although I never will believe he ran away. I will never believe that.
I spent more time at the command center trying to get information on where to go look than I did at that house. And it was to the point that they literally approached me one of the times I pulled in from looking, because I was driving around, windows were down. I was screaming Sebastian's name. I was going anywhere and everywhere, met some people who did not know the child was missing and let them know that he is missing, and pulled up so they could see pictures of him. And it got to the point that Sumner County approached me and stated, you need to stop being here at the command center.
Yeah.
Well, what am I supposed to do? My son is missing. I'm going to go look for him. I don't know where he's at.
You just wanted to do something. Listen,
I can't sit on my hands and not do anything. And they're like, well, you're coming in and you're looking at Caltopa. And I'm like, and you have it set up outside the building to begin with. So anybody could pull in and look. They went as far as contacting my job to let them know that I was wearing my coat from work so that I would receive a write-up. But there was news crews everywhere, and I was told not to do any interviews by Chief Deputy Craddock. He told us not to do any interviews. So I don't want to look like somebody out of, the whatever, walking into the command center. Everybody's in uniforms or, for their agency and stuff like that. So I had my sheriff hat on and my coat. Not my shirt, not my pants, not my boots, not the rest of, and it was cool. Like, it was cool enough that you needed to have a coat. And they contacted my boss to write me up for wearing my coat.
so you just got off from work. You got this worse news. And do you just kind of feel like they were out to get you from the start? I mean,
I don't feel they were out to get me. I felt that they felt like they didn't like somebody looking over their shoulder.
Yeah.
To see what they're doing. But it's my son.
Yeah.
That's kind of that pompous ego crap that we always talk about.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't care who you are. Please help me find my son. But when it comes down to what you're doing, I'm looking to see what you're doing because I'm looking for my son too.
Yeah. They probably
see the big screen up there and they're showing Caltopa. And I'm like, okay, I really don't know much about how this county is laid out, but I'm pulling up the county map and then I'm looking at Caltopa and I'm like, well, nobody has searched here or here or here. And I jump in my truck and I go search those areas in my vehicle because they told me if you're not going to stay in here at the house and you're going to search, do it from your vehicle.
Yeah.
Because the last thing we want is for you to go missing while we're searching for your son.
Yeah. In my opinion, it sounds a little bit egotistical and it sounds like they felt a little bit intimidated as well.
I mean, obviously they felt intimidated because Sheriff Craddock asked me to put in an application and come work for it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, sir. I'm not going to work for you. If you were to have found my son and done a proper investigation and stuff of that sort and not had your ego or whatever it is when you're dealing with me, that would have showed me some professionalism. But I don't need to show you professionalism. I am a parent of a missing child. I am extremely emotional about this. I cannot be involved with what's going on. And that's a conflict of interest if I put your badge on.
Exactly.
Let me ask you this. How do you, so how do you feel about, CPS? Were they not supposed to, California, should they have not had those records in Tennessee when Tennessee come and notified?
State child agencies do not communicate with each other.
Okay, on this part, I do agree. I do agree that if we learned many lessons through the pandemic, but as it pertains to this conversation, one of the lessons that we learned when they closed schools was that vulnerable children, were left falling through the cracks. Think of you guys remember that there were many cases that of children falling through the cracks and not at-risk children, vulnerable children, and in the at the top of the most serious cases, right, that they were no longer, there was no record of them. And then in the middle are the children that rely on school because sometimes that's their only meal, is the meal that they get if they get breakfast and obviously lunch. And that was the only time they would eat. So there were a lot of deficiencies, but I on this, I will say, I do agree that I think it would be beneficial if DCS, CPS, DCFS, it'd be beneficial if they would all go under one name. Number one, that would be helpful. But more importantly, I think that if they communicated, if there was a national database for social workers to have access to see if, when they go out on these calls, when things get reported, if DCS in other cities and other states have had contact with this family, what was going on, so they have a better, bigger, fuller picture. I think that could only help. And I do agree that that is a problem. And this is part of the things that are, within that system itself that need overhauling. Absolutely. I agree with that. And I think I think we're good for today for what I had intended for us to discuss. I think that we had a really good discussion, and I think that the chat you guys were great. Yeah, we had a little kerfuffle. Oh well, happens. It is what it is. Kim, I want you to know that I read your comment and the subsequent comments following that. I don't think you did anything wrong. Okay. And even if I had read nothing, I trust Neat. I trust her discretion. And I think that if you had done anything wrong, she would have said something to you, and then she would have, if you continued, I think she would have then, probably timed you out. Shmita too. I trust both of their discretion. Sam's in here as well. I trust all of their discretion. And so I just want you to know you're always welcome here. Okay. Okay. So Neat says There actually is a system for states to communicate with each other. I want to ask a follow-up question to that. Is it okay if that system exists, then is it something that when a social worker receives an intake report and they're assembling what they need to before going out to the residents to meet in person with the family, is that something that they can see if the family has had contact within other states? Because I think that if that exists, and I don't know what they're talking about, it's always been my understanding that once CPS, DCS, DCFS is notified that there has been contact with a family in other states, that usually they're notified by the family, and that then they can request those reports, etc. But is it something that they can see prior to? Does that make sense? Is it something they're aware? Is it something they're aware of before going out to a home? That's what I'm asking. That's what I would like to know. And I don't think this lawsuit is surprising when it comes to Sumner County Sheriff's Office. And the reason I say that is because the last portion that we just played, almost from the beginning, Seth, it seems, was at somewhat at odds with law enforcement in some instances. I think that and I'm not actually surprised. Okay, so Neat says, I will double check, but I believe they would have to go look for them. They wouldn't automatically populate the new file you open. And okay, so if that's the case, I believe what Seth is talking about here is that it would automatically populate the new file that you have open. That cases, open or close, follow the family wherever they live. And I think that's what they want. I am very curious as to, with that first incident reported to DCS in September of 22, why there was no contact why Seth wasn't contacted. And if that is going to rise to the level that would be required for Seth to be successful in this lawsuit against DCS. Because I think a likely scenario for DCS in that specific case, I'm not talking about in 2023, just in 2022. If everything happened in the way that Seth is saying that it did, and I do kind of believe that he's at least being, I believe he's being truthful, but more important to that, I believe he's being accurate, only in that what he's saying is supported in the filing. So with quotes is what I'm trying to say. So I wonder if what happened in that case is the reason that DCS spoke to Chris and Katie is really because that's where he lived. And because this was not something that happened in Tennessee, the actual assault didn't occur in Tennessee, that DCS felt they had enough information at that point, that, and I'm sure that the meeting that took place between the school and all of the parents in some capacity was documented. It would have to be, I would think. And then I think maybe DCS thought, hey, he knows that we've been contacted. If he thinks there's anything pertinent, we should know. I do think that maybe they thought, well, then he'll let us know. I do think that one of the element in that initial report that gives me pause is the quote that Sebastian was afraid of Chris Proudfoot finding out about California for a couple of reasons. Just on its face, right? Obviously, I would want to know when Sebastian uses the word afraid, because it's a quote. If I were a CP, I would think CPS would want to know what does he mean by the word afraid? When what does that mean to you? I would think that, but again, we don't know for a fact whether or not that was asked, because it sounds like from what Seth is saying on his panel that the reports he got are redacted. So they don't really know. I'm very curious about all of this, and I will definitely be following this. I will. Allie and I do still intend to do a follow-up live where we kind of go back and listen to the things that have been said about CPS or DCS, their involvement with Sebastian and the Proudfoots, and the lack of involvement according to Seth. But yeah, we do intend to go back and do that. I was hesitant, I'm not going to lie, to even do this live in the first place because of everything that's been that's going on recently. If you know, you know. If you don't worry about it. If it's nothing, it doesn't impact the case one way or the other, but obviously drama. So, and I don't really want to get into it much more than just to say, I'll tell you what I think. It doesn't matter what I think with respect to that drama, because at the end of the day, people are going to feel how they feel, and they're going to feel it for however long they feel it, and it's going to change absolutely nothing. It'll happen again. So it doesn't really matter what I think. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say about that. But I want to thank everybody for being here today, and ask if you feel like it to give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down on the stream. If you've made it this far and you're on the replay, if you wouldn't mind doing the same. And hey, if you think I deserve it and you want to, give your girl a hype. So thanks for listening. Thanks for being here, everybody. Thank you to my mods. And yeah, I mean, I have feelings, Nate, but what's really the point? It's not me saying how I feel one way or, about any of it isn't going to change anything. And probably likely will cause problems. And I feel like speaking up is beneficial when it, for me, not for other people, just for me personally. I tend to speak up when I feel like something productive can come from it. And I just don't think that me speaking up would result in anything productive. So just going to leave it where it is. There's plenty of channels covering it. And I'm sure I did, Nate. And maybe listen, hey, you feel the thumbs down, you feel how you feel. It is what it is. But thank you guys. Thank you to the mods. I appreciate it very, very much. I'll catch you around. Remember, now, just to update you on what's coming, I do intend to cover Lindsay Clancy's trial. They're on day 2 of jury selection. I think they have sat 3. Let me look. I Googled it earlier. Let me tell you. Un momentito, por favor. And I will tell you exactly when I checked it. Hold on. Hold on. Sorry, you guys. I cannot talk to you and type this out at the same time. I'm telling you right now, it'll look like a Letitia Stout Google with periods where they don't go. All right. Let's see. Here are the latest updates. 9 jurors have been seated as of Tuesday afternoon. So there you go. They're trying to get 18 total jurors. Okay. So there you go. All right. You guys have a great rest of your day. And as soon as they've sat the 18 people, and opening statements begin, that is when my trial streaming begins every day, all day. So there you go. We got another trial to watch together. And that's the only part of this trial I'm looking forward to, is the fact that I get to do it with you guys. The trial itself is a very difficult one. And probably once they've sat the jury, I think they're expecting trial to begin next week, but once they've sat the jury, and we'll do a refresher before the trial actually starts. Hopefully we get to do that. I know that if we don't get to do that, or if you want to, Alex Erickson has done an extensive amount of coverage on this case. And so I would absolutely unequivocally recommend checking her channel out for that and for other things. She's got a great channel. So go on over there and check it out. Let me drop Allie's link right quick in this chat before I forget. Oop. There you go. All right, you guys have a great rest of your afternoon, and I will see y'all later. Bye.